We are Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mad Mamluks podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Amir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have a wonderful show for you guys this afternoon. Before we get started, help us out on patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks. This podcast is entirely supported by your support. Help us out in any way you can, and we greatly appreciate it. If you also make sure to give the old like button a nice tap, and leave a comment in the comment section below with your thoughts related to this show. Our guest today is a brother out of Texas. Please welcome Yunus Anthony. He's texting right now. He doesn't care. This is what he thinks about the podcast. He's like,
I just gotta let my peeps know I'm on.
We're doing it.
Yeah, it's going.
I made it, guys.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, man. MashaAllah. Brothers here on business. I was actually surprised. You know, I'm not going to lie. When I came through the door and I saw you, I thought you were being sarcastic. You said that you came here just to see us.
I did.
But you were actually genuinely happy.
100%.
I felt so bad. I was like, dude, this guy's genuinely so happy to see us losers. I was like, I wonder what he thinks of us. Like, well, there has to be a lot that's going on in your mind to think that. But alhamdulillah, man. Thanks for coming down, bro. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me, man. I'm really touched. It's an honor. It's an honor
awesome.
to be on the Mad Mamluks.
Let's introduce him. I guess he's also a grandfather.
Say, man.
Oh, mashallah. So what brings you to our neck of the woods?
So it's interesting. This is how this happened. It was very organic. Me and Sim kind of reached out to one another. I think I reached out before he reached out to me, and then we just kind of started talking a couple of months ago.
I just sent a friend request to Larry because he's white.
Yeah,
I like spreading or creating a nice network of white people. So
let's be honest.
Because, look,
now Sim has a half white son,
I do.
so he's trying to empathize with our white Muslim brethren.
Alhamdulillah.
And
Someone has to.
Yeah.
Someone needs to take care of him if something happens to him. Who better than his own people, right?
You're right.
The Robert Dufour's European white community can help out my son if something happens, right?
Bro, we're a minority, man. Yeah. Not only am I white, now I'm part of the majority. Then I decided to become Muslim, and so now I'm part of a minority. Now I'm white in the Muslim community, where it's predominantly Desi and Arab, and so now I'm a minority. I'm in a minority. There just needs to be more. There's just not enough of us.
So what happened with the correspondence with you and Sim, bro?
So we just going back and forth. He's like going, hey man, I'd like to get you on the air. It's like going, and then y'all would always have these shows on Wednesday, and it's after my bedtime.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I could never get on. I was either busy doing my my side hustle, my job, either getting off work and then I go right back to work. And it's just y'all were just on too late. I was like, couldn't chime in. I was like, there's a couple times like, I'm gonna try and come in. I swear, I'm gonna try and come in. I could never do it. So I was like, well, screw this. So I got a hold of Sim and said, hey man, he actually said, well, I'd like to get you on. I was like, going, give me a heads up, give me enough time, a notice, and I'll come up there. He's like, going, well, let's try and do it before Ramadan. I was like, well, man, you're the man in charge. This is your baby. You tell me. You're the boss. He's like, well, let's do it before Ramadan. So I said, okay, how about that? I said, let's do it the 11th. My wife leaves to Mexico on the 10th. I can head up to Chicago. So let's do it. It's like, as soon as he said yes, I booked my flight.
MashaAllah, bro. Thank you, man.
Nice.
No, thank you. I feel like this is very surreal for me. This is pretty
Really?
cool. I always wanted to say this when I call. When I call. It's like one long time listener, first time caller.
wait, hold on. So you booked the flight just to come to the show?
None.
That's what I'm telling you, bro.
100%.
That's humbling, man.
If I had known that, I would have came like a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
That's what I was telling you guys.
I didn't know that. He doesn't share many details with us.
We can hang out after this.
Yeah,
no, we can. I honestly didn't know you came.
I
thought, yeah, man.
I came for you. 100%. I came for you guys.
That means a lot, bro.
That's truly humbling.
Man, Allah reward you, bro.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us in the afterlife as well, too.
I mean.
I see y'all, swear to God, I see y'all, and I just have love in my heart for you guys.
Allah,
yeah.
May Allah make you amongst His beloved too, man.
I mean. May Allah put us underneath the star on the Qiyamah.
You know what I love about this show is that we are pretty close to most of our like core listeners, people who are like regular listeners. We have a good relationship with them. And it's not never like you're an influencer and like a fan. We genuinely like have like great gatherings. People roll into town and we get to host them. We were just in a really privileged position where we get to meet so many different people of different backgrounds, and it's really fun, inshallah.
Yeah, it is, man. I agree. But what else? I mean, there's a lot to do in Chicago. I know you said you want to go to the Bean, but what else? Who are some other people that you met? And let us know some of these experiences.
So I know Sheikh Hamza.
Share the love, man.
Share. So I know Sheikh Hamza Maqbal. I'm sure he's listening. And I also, one more thing, I want to give a shout out to Carlos Perez and Angel Diaz. They told me if I didn't give a shout out to them that they were gonna.
I actually I interact with Carlos on TikTok.
He's a good guy, man.
Mashallah, yeah, amazing, man.
Actually,
Mashallah.
I teased him. So when Sim gave me the green light to come up here, first thing I did, because I knew my wife was going to Mexico, so she wasn't going to come with me. So I texted Carlos and said, "Hey, bro, you want to go to Chicago?" He's like, "I'm going." First I said, "What are you doing on the weekend of the 11th?" He's like, "I'm going to the beach." He's like, "Okay, I'm going to Chicago. You want to come?" He's like, "Why didn't you tell me this?" He goes, "What are you going to Chicago for?" I was like, "I'm going to be on the Mad Mamluks." And he's like, "Bro." He goes, "Bro, why didn't you tell me this?" I was like, "Man, it just kind of happened. It just was very organic." I mean, me and Sim were talking, we hooked it up, and bam, we were here. He's like, "Man, I wish I had known." I was like, "I know I'm going to hit up Sheikh Hamza Mokbal and everything," because me and him both know Sheikh. And so I met Sheikh Hamza. Me and him just had coffee right before here, and actually that was my second cup of coffee. So I'm very jittery right now, and I'm freaking high as a kite.
How was the meeting at Sheikh Hamza? Was he?
Man, we'll talk about that. We talked mostly about my business, and we'll talk about that too, inshallah, because I'm sure y'all want to hear.
You've met him before, right?
Yeah. So I met Sheikh Hamza about 3 years ago, back in 2019, spring of 2019. He was doing a Aqidah Tahawiyah down in Irving Masjid in Dallas. And I sat in that class. Me and my wife went. Carlos was there too. And the minute I saw Sheikh Hamza, I fell in love with the man.
Oh, he's a gangster.
Ever since then, I've been...
People are like, by the way, we love Sheikh Hamza, but people will say like, that kind of... His manner of speaking is very direct, and it's kind of might ruffle the feathers of new Muslims and stuff like that.
We need that.
You didn't have that problem?
I need to hear it.
Oh, you need that.
Someone needs to put me in my place.
No, I
if it's not my wife, it's Sheikh Hamza.
You always need somebody that's going to be like, bro, he's no sugar. We were talking about this before the show. He's not a sugarcoater. He's going to tell you like it is. He doesn't care who's around. He'll say whatever he needs to say, man.
I need to hear it.
Mashallah.
100%.
What do you think about the show that we did with Dalif, where Dalif has a very gentle approach with new Muslims and having... being more accommodating to their sensitivities and stuff like that.
Well, Sheikh Hamza is needed when I think for people who are already Muslim, and we need staunch and hard reminders to put us back on, because it's so easy for us to just go, ghafla, easy. Yeah. It's just easy to get carried away, especially here in the West in this country. It's so easy. So you need someone who's going to be in your face and try and put you, here's the straight path.
Yeah.
Now for Talif, and I actually watched that episode. It was good episode, by the way, mashallah. Yeah. There's always a different approach. They need to be gentle, because you're trying to bring people into the deen. This is the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Is compassion. That's the first thing what people forget about Islam, is that this is a deen of compassion. Yeah. This is not a deen of hard, fast rules like in your face. It's not about that. It's about you. And this is also unfortunately a misunderstanding about Islam, is that we're so harsh. We're not. This is a deen of compassion and a deen of mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says clearly in the Quran, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as a mercy for all the worlds, for mankind. Yeah. So, and even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, when he reminds the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, if you had been harsh, the people would have run away from the deen.
Yes, sir. But you need those reminders too. Like, you need people that can do that.
There's a time and place for everything. Yes, sir. Right? There's a time to be in your face, and there's a time to show compassion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, look, you have to be able to show gentleness to bring people into Islam, especially some people that are halfway, kind of teeter-tottering, where like, I'm not sure if I can be, or am I good enough to be a Muslim. It should give you that boost of confidence hey, Allah is choosing you, Allah is giving you signs, there's a way for you, right? Yep. But at the same time, we always talk about this, right? We are ummatun wasata. We are that middle nation, and that means we have encouragement when we need it, and we have harshness when we need it. Yeah. Right? Like if someone, like for example, there was a particular conversation where, a reaver had come to Islam, and the conversation of the whole rainbow thing came up, and the idea is that I wanted to make sure there's a clear difference between saying one can have inclination and desires, and you can still be a Muslim. And I think that is like the rahmah part of it. Like Allah empathizes and recognizes what you're
He's the
going
one that
through.
made the test for you. Yeah.
But then there's a harshness where if you cross that line after knowing what you know, there are punishments.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? If you try to say, well, no, I'm going to speak on behalf of Allah and say, it's fine, even if I do it, He knows me. Now you're crossing a line in which now you enter that dangerous territory where someone needs to come and say, you have to read in the Quran, wherever it comes from, they have to come and say, no. That's the red line. And if you cross that, you're on the path to the hellfire.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think there has to be that balance.
You know,
right?
I was just a few days ago, I was reading this story. I don't know if you know this sahabi. His name is Marital al-Qanawi, I think. Qanawi? Marital? Marital was, radiallahu anh, was responsible for freeing slaves in Mecca. So he would be sent to Mecca to free slaves, and I think like smuggle them back, or sorry, not slaves, but they were captives who were Muslims. And Rasulullah had already established the state in Medina, and his job was to go over to Mecca and get these captives safely back to Medina. And he was actually in love with a woman who was in Mecca, and I forgot her name, but she so he would sneak over there, and he free the captives and then get them back. But he, I think, was going by her home because he loved her so much, but she was a mushrik, and he was spotted by her, and she sees him, she calls to him and says, Martha, you know, where have you been? Why did you abandon me? Why did you leave me? Because he had went with the Prophet when they all escaped to Medina. And he said, you know, and then she said, why don't we go somewhere private? Well, you know, let's get out of here. You know, she's his lover. And so he's like, no, I can't. I'm Muslim now, and I fear Allah, and if you want, we can get married. If you accept, we can do that. And she refuses or something, and she's like, she gets insulted by him kind of like rebuffing her advances, you know. And she calls to everyone and says, hey, look, here's Martha. He's coming here to he's attacking me, or he's made advances towards me, unwelcome advances or whatever, you know. And then they all like beat him up, and he escapes, and he goes back to the Prophet after hiding from them, and there was a whole ordeal in just escaping from the people who were attacking him. And when he goes back to the Prophet, he says, Prophet, can I marry her? He still wants to marry her. It's like that. She like outed him in front of everyone in Makkah, accused him of advances, and it was just so amazing when I was reading this that the Prophet's reply wasn't like, "Where's your self-respect? Where is it? Where are you a dayuth? What? You know, those kind of like harsh languages that we're seeing now on like social media." He just paused, and the ayah came down that, you know, the believing man and woman should not marry polytheists, you know, and he was so happy that the ayah came down for his occasion, and he accepted that. Wow. I mean, it's such an Islamic love story because he's actually not. It's not a happy ending, and he sacrifices his love for the sake of Allah, you know. And the Prophet doesn't scold him. He doesn't say like, where's your honor, where's your dignity? She already like, you know, humiliated you in front of everyone. You know, because when you're in love, you let man lets a woman do anything to her, you know, to him. And
willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, women. They just make excuses for it. You know.
State, yeah.
So you're kind of in that trance, and the Prophet understood that. You know.
Allahu Akbar.
And
the verse is going to override his feelings.
Yeah.
Allahu Akbar.
But that shows the nature of the men around the messenger at that time.
Yeah, but look at the favor of Allah.
Like today, but again, Allah chose specific people to be His ashab.
Yeah.
Right? Because many people today will, why is that wrong?
Allahu Akbar, yeah.
Why? Love is love. You know, it doesn't matter. Love is love. It doesn't matter what they believe. Love is love.
Don't look at me in my eyes, make eye contact and smile when you say that, bro.
Yeah. No,
because
I'm trying to drive a point home here to you.
Feel uncomfortable, yeah.
But the point being, though, is that there has to be this level of understanding and appreciation of not only the fact that this man compromised his feelings. I mean, he's gave it or replaced it with something other than that. But that shows two different things to me. Number one, his love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he would first go to him.
Yes, sir.
Right? Like he would, فَرُدُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِ. Right? He was taking his problem back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which every Muslim should do. Right? Allah and His Messenger. But then he shows his Islam by submitting to what came down to him.
Yeah.
And then he's happy with what came down.
Of course.
رَضِيَ اللَّهُ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ.
But look at the favor even Allah did. Allah revealed verses for him.
That's what I'm saying.
So that he has no other option but his feelings be overridden by verses coming down for his sake. It's such a beautiful thing, bro. Yeah.
This is the whole thing. They are pleased and Allah is pleased with them.
Yeah, man.
And that's something we lack today.
Yeah,
like
man.
a lot of times people, we say, we believe in the qadr of Allah, wa sharri, everything.
Yes.
Everything. We believe in it, right? But it's one thing to say and it's one thing to actually implement.
So, man, I'm glad you mentioned that, bro. I was going to give a talk and I think I'm going to change it.
Yeah,
to
you
that,
do.
bro.
You do stories of the Sahaba, right?
Yeah, every
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, this is something else.
Oh,
man.
you do? How come I didn't know this?
Doesn't matter, bro. Sometimes I don't want people to come and destroy the whole situation.
Wow.
Okay, so here's the thing, Larry.
Wow.
Yunus, when we come to Sheikh Amir's talks, we're sitting in the thing and we're making faces at him.
No, this doesn't happen much anymore. When I first came back from Egypt and I was giving khutbahs, and I was still kind of like fresh because I never really liked it. It's something you never really get used to. You don't really love public speaking, right? This guy, I'd be giving a khutbah and I'd see him and I didn't know he was going to be there. This guy.
Okay. This guy.
And he'd be making, not really, he wouldn't be intentionally. It's like he knew that he didn't want to see me looking at him because I didn't want to look at him. So sometimes I'd be looking in the crowd, I'd see him, he'd be like, and all I would see was his head and his eyes looking up at me like this, and I'd be like, I'm giving a talk, bro. Sometimes maybe something emotional, whatever, and I see this guy and I'm like, oh, he's right there. So I'd be looking at the crowd. I know where he is now, so I'd go like this. My eyes would go like this.
I would bust out laughing every time.
That's the whole point.
Like
what we would try to do is we would try to split up like one in each corner. Like we would try to just go around, the one in the middle.
You know who else does stuff like that? Shayateen do stuff like that, bro.
He just trolling you. Are you trying to say that the Shayateen?
No, I'm just saying Shayateen do stuff like that. These guys are humans.
They just want to troll you, bro.
But there are Shayateen min al-jins wal-ins, right? So
you never know, bro. Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
So I mean that's just there's people that do that, bro. They try to make faces at you and stuff like that. No, but I'm glad you mentioned that, bro. Because that kind of just shifted everything I was thinking about.
Always finds it very distracting whenever I say ربنا لك الحمد.
No. Wait, let me stop it. Look, okay.
Let it finish.
My job, I'm the designated ربنا لك الحمد guy. Okay. I don't want to be, man. I want to be ربنا لك الحمد guy.
No.
Okay, so let me tell you. Usually, as you can tell, Sim is the more quiet one out of everybody, right? So when Salah starts, first of all, he gets his leg.
You can't say anything right now because I want to chime in on this too.
And he goes after the Imam says Allahu Akbar, he goes, Allah.
No. Hold on. Let me add you. He goes, Allah.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah. No, I love it too. But, we don't know if he's just trying to make us laugh or not.
No, because he normally doesn't say anything when we talk, right? And then all of a sudden, like, it's not even like he's saying, there's a crowd behind us and he's saying,
so they can all hear.
Rabbana wa lakal hamd, right? No. Rabbana.
Mashallah. Mashallah.
Yeah,
like,
bro.
It's like this thing, and we're like, and he knows he does it. He knows it.
No. And then when we do our salam after we're done, what does he do when we're done?
Oh my God, bro.
Astaghfirullah, 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 really loud and all that kind of stuff.
He just
He's looking at you.
Yes.
As I'm the imam, I can't. When I turn around as the imam when I'm leading, I can't look at him because I look at him. He just starts smiling while he's doing zikr and looking at me like nodding his head. Like, yeah, I'll do it too, bro. Like, I never said you weren't doing it.
One time I turned around after doing that, and dude, in front of his family, goes, "Astaghfirullah."
He does it really loud.
He's looking at me, and he's like looking at me.
And then everyone starts laughing. He's like, "What, guys? I'm just."
I just think, look, Sim's just he's he's trying to be honest with his ibadah. I mean,
That's true though.
I just
You're
think,
right.
Sim, I think they're trying to judge you in regards to your intent.
I like to emulate people who I feel like, because they're very like visible in when we're at the mosque. You always see that one guy, he's always very loud with his dhikr. Like no one asks you which dhikr you're reciting, bro, but he seems really religious, right? So I try to emulate those people, or sometimes I try to emulate.
What just happened?
Dude, those are the most annoying people next to me.
He just almost you're like, when someone oxymorons, it's obvious, but you like did it right at the border. Yeah. It was almost oxymoron, so it's like more confusing for us.
There's also some reciters that I like. Sometimes we have local imam. I call him Deep Throat. I'm not gonna mention his name, but
Deep Throat.
I usually try to emulate his, the depth of his.
Why would you call somebody deep?
Because he has a really deep voice. That's why.
Just call him Deep Voice.
Yeah, I know.
Deep Throat has bad
Because Deep Throat has a negative connotation.
What, the Nixon guy?
That too,
but also there's another thing
yes,
there.
during the 70s.
I don't know what
If
you guys are
pure
talking
Sayyid
about.
mind doesn't go that way.
It's kind of
that's
part
true.
of American history now.
Yeah.
It's American History X.
I don't know.
XXX.
I honestly have no
For
idea what
real.
you guys are talking
Yeah.
about.
That's probably best.
Yeah, it's probably best you don't know your
Male, keep your
Sayyidi.
heart clean.
I mean,
yeah.
So can I shift gears a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I'm curious about this business venture. Like, can you talk about it now? Like,
Let's talk about Larry and his journey first, okay?
It's Yunus. I don't know who Larry is.
Yeah, sorry. I've been so used to calling you that.
It's okay.
I like Larry though. Larry's a good name.
I like Larry too.
You know why?
He introduced himself as Yunus, so I want to be
Yeah,
respectful.
no, but I'm saying
See,
generally.
You're gonna love this story more.
On his Facebook, he has his original name. That's why I'm so used to it.
I do that so people don't get confused. And by the way, I friended you on Facebook. So
I haven't checked it in like months. I
just did it today.
I'll log in right now and I'll approve it because I don't usually log in.
So let me tell you a story about. So I told this to Sheikh Hamza before I came here. So right when I got married to my current wife, alhamdulillah, we've been married for almost 16 years.
MashaAllah.
So when we got married, she's like going, so I'm not going to call you Larry. What's your Muslim name? So let me finish. So before I got married to my current wife, I'd always been playing around with the name Yunus. It had some, personal meaning for me, especially when I was going through my divorce. And so that was between me and Allah. I kind of kept that to myself because I know you didn't need to take another name, but I felt that this name identified me because this is where I had transitioned to, right?
You transitioned?
He's such a troll. I'm aware
now you get it. Now you get it.
Yeah.
No, what I mean by transition from being jahl
Oh, okay, mashallah.
to hikmah, right?
May Allah reward you.
I mean. So I kind of kept that name kind of close to my chest between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when I married my wife, and it was actually the night after we got married, and she's like, well, I just want to let you know I'm not calling you Larry. I don't like it. What am I gonna? I'm gonna go.
The next day, bro.
She's like going,
wow.
No, the night of that, right after we got married, and so she's like going. I said, well, I'm kind of playing with this name Yunus, and she's like going, that's it. I'm calling you Yunus from now on.
Wow.
So that was it. It kind of stuck. I like the name.
It's a beautiful name.
I've kind of stuck with the name.
Did she ever call you like the English version of it, or no? Just
no,
stick
it's
to
Yunus.
That's pretty cool.
So I like Larry because it reminds me of Larry David.
Who's Larry David?
I didn't know. He's the creator of
Seinfeld.
Oh, that's
And
right.
then he has a
That's right. No, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
And he's a guy that always gets shafted like Sheikh Amr.
Oh man, I would never
let's give the
shaft
listeners
Sheikh
an update on, because we told them about how you're having car problems.
How you abandoned
Our wonderful
us
Sheikh, he bought a lemon. He bought
it wasn't a lemon.
A car that had
let's not talk about this. Forget it.
That's the update. He bought a lemon.
Yeah, I'm alhamdulillah, man. I've been tested with many car trials.
Just
no,
lease
but
shit.
Alhamdulillah, bro.
can we just? There's one car that you had that didn't give you any problems. And alhamdulillah, I chose that one for you.
That's because it's your barakah, man. That's it.
No, because I chose it for you. And the point that we were saying was that just because you have knowledge of fiqh and aqeedah and hadith doesn't mean you have knowledge of cars and other worldly things. So you should know your place, Sheikh.
Yeah.
When brothers who know more than you about certain things, well, normally we can't tell you about religion. When we tell you about things that we know more knowledge about, you should listen to us.
No, Sheikh used to be a amazing car guy, gearhead. You know, he
I
was
mean,
one of those people.
I used to be inclined to cars. I was
He
never
would
like
like to
mechanical.
listen. He could hear the motor of a car and know which car.
I enjoy it.
What happened?
Which car it was.
So what happens is actually qadr. That's what it is.
Allah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
when he was becoming a practicing
Forget
Muslim,
all of you.
in
It's
college.
qadr, bro.
In college, he was trying to like let go of this, this love for cars and stuff, and so he would like whenever there was a beautiful car out on the road, he would be like, I got to keep my eyes down. Like,
Yeah, the guy used to be like, you got to lower your gaze. That's what he
Allah,
said.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rated you of dunya to fill you with the love of the akhirah.
I mean, Jazakallah khairan, man. I hope
No
that's
more attachments to this dunya.
But
I mean, it's still there.
He did have this. So let me tell you how much of a gearhead. So back when Sheikh Amr used to drive around a Dodge Caravan or Plymouth, whatever it was, and he would literally literally race this minivan.
Like race the minivan.
Literally.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
In snow, I do donuts and all that.
He would be on the highway trying to cut through
God.
lanes and racing us. And then eventually, Allah favored him with getting a different car, which was a Mazda 626 that had an old school one, but it had like this modified turbo.
Japanese engine in it.
Yeah, and it had like I think a 10-pound, 15-pound boost
It really nice
turbo, and it was
It
so
was a sleeper. It was a family car.
It was a total beater. Like it was just had rust on it, and it was just like totally mismatched. But it would like smoke Mustangs, like V8s offline.
Yeah.
It was honestly the like the wheels and everything couldn't handle.
Yeah, the suspension ended up getting well wasted.
Yeah, so what happened? We'd be taking off the line and we'd be flying everywhere, like Mario Kart. You just like you hit a banana peel. Yeah, we'd be like bouncing and sliding, and it would never handle anything.
Yeah.
And then that.
So
was his story.
So look, let me clarify. So I have a lot of friends that are really good, like mechanically with cars. I was never that guy. I just used to love like being in cars and driving cars and that kind of stuff. Reading up on cars here and there, new cars coming out. But I was never really like when you say gearhead, people think how to like work mechanically on cars.
Yeah.
It started like one of my first jobs I was like doing like oil changes. Remember that place called Tire Connection on Roosevelt Road in Lombard? I used to basically do like.
I remember that.
Yeah,
he would
oil
porter
changes,
the cars
and then the funnest part of that job was porting cars. Porting, like you basically the dealership
transport it.
Yeah, so basically BMW and Jaguar used to drop off their cars there, and I used to have to drive it back and then drive another car back.
Do you remember that one story? Okay, I'm gonna tell a story of Sheikh Amr. So Sheikh Amr decides to go crazy one day, and he's like, okay, they had a Jaguar, it was a Vanden Plow, which is a nice big one, right? And he's like speeding around at lunchtime, whatever, and he comes to my house because we used to pick each other up sometimes. And little did we know, apparently he was driving really fast, and a bird got stuck in the grill. Remember that? And we had to like.
There's a lot of interesting.
We had to like clean it out, and it was like blood in the thing, and we're like, oh crap, I gotta take his car back. I was trying
to remember something.
Yeah, remember? And then because you were just flying on the highway somewhere because you wanted to.
I went to so many guys' house. Like I was so happy about this. I actually went to my house because like we all used to live. My older brother wasn't married yet, so we were all in my parents' place. And I came short of the car. Like, what are you doing? I was like, jump in, we'll give you a ride. And I used to just go to my friend's house randomly and give them rides. Wanted everyone to feel the fun, because it was a beautiful thing. And that was a nice summer job, and that kind of like put my interest even more in just like sleeper. I love sleeper cars that don't look fast but they're really fast. That's that's my thing.
Back to Larry's story.
Yeah, back to Larry.
I thought we were just going to be
David.
Car mechanics. You remember that? Do y'all ever listen to NPR?
Yeah.
Remember back when I think it was on the weekend on either Saturday or Sunday, they have that car mechanics show in the morning.
Yeah.
Those guys are good.
We can only see that kind of show.
Yeah. And it was like the car equivalent of This Old House.
Bob
Villa. Remember? Good old Bob Villa. Yeah.
Anyway,
so your story. So yeah.
What would y'all like to know?
Well, I want to know first of all, how does a heavy metal guy Death metal. I'm sorry. Correction. Hear about Islam.
Death
Okay,
metal
so-
is-
There's
yeah.
one right next to you too.
No, he doesn't count. He's a brown guy. He doesn't count.
So the whole death metal, heavy metal scene was back in 1992. So I
Yeah,
know
we
this
know.
before most of y'all were born. So
Not me. I was well aware of the big hair in the 80s, big hair bands.
well,
and all that stuff.
not the big hair bands. We were the opposite of
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm saying I remember the whole era where there was like a parallel. Like there was like
Yeah.
they used to
Kind of
hate each other.
Alternative universes.
Those guys are commercial.
Is that what it
we
was?
hate those
Yeah.
commercial guys.
So
Yeah,
let us know what's
yeah,
up,
yeah.
dude.
So, I mean, I was your typical teenager heavy metal guy, Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and then of
Yeah.
course I got a little heavier, especially when I got out of high school. You know, we're talking about Entombed,
Yeah.
Cannibal Corpse.
Same here.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly my
What's
trajectory.
what's the other Obituary?
Obituary.
Yeah.
I never heard of
yeah.
this of Cannibal
Slayer.
Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse. They're out of
Yeah.
most of these bands. It's very interesting. They come out of Tampa, Florida, which
Yeah.
makes sense because it's such a big Bible belt thumping freaking place.
Yeah.
So it's all in retaliation. Have you ever heard of the band Deicide?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wasn't it a typo negative?
Typo
No,
negative.
Yeah.
that's not a death metal
Oh,
band.
it was
No,
not-
that's
it's
more
like
of a
gothic.
Gothic. Yeah,
metal,
that's what they were.
So back in my early teens, so after I graduated high school, I formed this band together. I wish I couldn't find the picture. I was going to send it to you. I'll send it to you later.
Wow,
So-
you formed a band too.
Yeah, it was a band called, we called ourselves Insidious.
Oh.
Insidious.
Five
ooh.
member band. So
Isn't the horror movie now called Insidious?
yeah, it is now. So we were in this death metal band. It was back in the early 90s. And so it was a five piece. I played the bass. Then we had our lead singer, rhythm guitar, lead guitar, and that guy on drums. And so we were. It was just a local act, and we were just really a garage band. Really, it didn't
Yeah.
go. But we did cut a demo. For the love of me, I've been trying to find it, and I can't find it anymore. This is before, of course. This is when it's still cassette tapes. You know what I mean? Before CDs.
Yeah.
That's such a big deal back then. like-
Yeah. So we actually cut a demo, but that was about it. You know, there were girl problems, and that eventually destroyed the band. And then I left to join the Navy shortly after. So
But people don't realize, like nowadays, because of all like people can access this kind of equipment, it's easy to make a demo today.
oh yeah, 100%.
But back then, you would have someone with a bat machine or try to
no,
convert.
you had to go to a studio.
Yeah, you go to a
Studio, yeah.
studio.
Now you can do you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and at that time, like if you had a demo, someone who had a demo, it was like, oh, you're almost certain to make it because there were people that, you know, if you got a demo out, it was a big a hump in the hill in the first place, like a road, in the mountain, because you got over that first mountain because it sounds professional, right? It's audio engineered, it's like, you know, everything's tuned. If you just throw a cassette, right, it was just gonna sound horrible. But the fact that you got someone to actually tune your audio,
Yeah.
and then produce one,
So it was
yeah.
pretty lit, especially if someone I was 19 at the time, to hear your demo. You're like when you're
Wow.
on cloud freaking nine, man. It's
And
powerful.
then you said you went to the Navy after that?
Yeah, so the band didn't
Wow.
work out. During the 90s, there was a lot of competition, especially in Dallas. There was a lot of local bands. You had Pantera,
Yeah.
was just coming up and had just released Vulgar Display of Power. So they
Yep.
were just coming out of the garage and they were starting to hit it big. And you had other bands, and there was a couple of bands that I know. My ex-brother-in-law, he was in a band that made it big, and then of course his guitarist is still doing his thing. He's actually done well, and I've known all these people since I was in high school, right?
Yeah.
Including my ex-wife. So the band fell apart. From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, it fell apart. And then I joined the Navy shortly after. 30 years ago today, I had finished boot camp. And I was
Whoa.
going to get ready to go out to the fleet. So I worked on F-14 Tomcats, so very Top Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I did that. So
Where were you stationed at?
I was stationed in Japan for 2 years.
Okinawa?
At Atsugi.
Oh.
It's the Naval Air Station. Okinawa. I've been to Okinawa.
Yeah.
And I've been to Iwo Jima. We did some detachments over there. But we were in the Naval Air Facility at Atsugi. VF-21 freelancer. So all my VF-21 freelancer dogs out there. There you go. Shout out to you guys if y'all are listening. So we did that. And I'm going to tell you something. This was before we went co-ed. So it was all male squadron, all male ship. All I gotta say is I didn't need to go to college. That was the biggest frat party I've ever been. I
heard.
Bro, I've got stories that I can't say on the mic.
Yeah.
I'll tell you all afterwards because then we'll have to relabel this R-rated because there's I've got some
But is
stories.
it true about sailors that you know they experiment a lot
Experiment with what?
with themselves? Like
He means homosexuality.
I hope not.
No.
it gets lonely at a sea
Yeah,
for a
that-
while.
that's
You know,
what-
when you're
look,
That's why you dock every few months,
Yeah,
right?
that's why you're talking, man. It's just party time. We've been to Thailand, Singapore,
Just because
so-
they're called seamen, it doesn't mean
No.
they're
Ay,
adults.
Dios mío.
So-
No.
Apparently, the legend has it that like they would dock and they keep their uniforms on because they have to, but like the
No, we
women there.
went in civvies, bro.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, the women there know if you're American that you're there for a good time and not a long time.
Yep.
So, but some people would knock them up and then just marry them,
Yeah.
but some would just kind of just let loose and they'd come back on the ship.
That's
and,
right. Even the married guys, bro.
Yeah.
Even the married guys.
Yeah,
But then you always had the. Sorry, Mort. Let me
No.
catch up. But then you have the. You know, you're not too careful. You're gonna
the
catch a
clap?
little something.
Catch the
Yeah.
Catch a little
clap.
something.
Yeah, get the clap.
I remember they said especially after every. The story is that wait till we pull out of Thailand. You're gonna see a lot of people go to internal medicine because they got the clap. And you're gonna hear everybody screaming because they got a rotor them.
Holy love, man! Oh my god, bro!
Because they said when you pee, it's like pissing razors, and they got to clean out and take that sample, so they got a rotor.
Did you ever watch that movie with Russell Brand where they sing "I Got the Clap"?
No,
He's like a,
no,
he's like a rock star who's just.
no.
I didn't
It's
watch it,
such
but
a-
I saw that scene.
It's a great.
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
So you did. So you were like actually living the Top Gun life.
Yeah, I was living the Top Gun life. Yeah,
So,
I was
on a aircraft carrier.
yes, I was on the USS Independence. That was my first tour. We were a forward deployed squadron, so every time, and this was during the Clinton administration, right, his first term. So if anything was going down, the president would give us a call, and we had to go out. So we were always, we had to be military ready. So we'd always do detachments, and our pilots were always working, always flying. So I was a plane captain for F-14s, which means we prepped the birds, we got the pilots ready, we made sure the bird was ready to go. It was our bird.
Yeah.
It was our bird, right? So that was pretty fun. So I remember every time I walked on the flight deck, I heard a dun 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 dun. The Top Gun, the Top. I always heard the Top Gun anthem went off for me every time. I was like going, yeah.
You know that the actual real Top Gun people in the real life program,
Yeah.
they're not allowed to make any
No,
Top
they'll-
Gun references.
They'll get fined $5 every time they make
Why
a Top
is
Gun
that?
reference.
because it's just corny or like it's something
What the trainers
Making a
of Top
fake
Gun say
reality.
is that it's about you have to keep things professional.
Yeah.
It's not time to gaff off. This is serious
Yeah.
work. So if you make a Top Gun, like it's like I feel the need for speed. $5, Lieutenant. Give
No,
it
I
up.
can get that. And you're also making it like a fake imaginary type.
Exactly, but they want you to take it
Not real to the
seriously.
heart, yeah.
They want
Yeah,
you
I
to take it
get that.
seriously. So they
So
do
did
fine
you
buttons.
watch the Maverick, the new one?
I sure did. The first day and night it came out.
Did you? What do you think about it? Like,
I
being
thought
a-
it was freaking badass.
me and Mort saw it.
Really?
Yeah,
It
we
was a
saw
really
it,
good movie.
and-
I even bought it.
Yeah, I
love
was
it.
gonna say that most sequels of like the '80s movies turn up horrible, but this one wasn't done that bad.
No,
I
it was
actually liked
good.
it.
They actually did a good job. I remember when I was in my Tomcat squadron, we used to make fun of Top Guns, like going because they're like, "When really the bird can't do that," and they're showing the cockpit of an A6. That's not an F-14. Like, well, that's not how we made fun of them all the time. But I have to say, with Maverick,
They got
really
it right.
good job. I
They
think
got
they,
it
I
right.
think they did a really good job.
Oh wow.
They did a really good job. I was impressed by it. I actually wanted to stand up and clap, and my stepson said, "Sit your butt down." So I would go, "Oh, it's a good freaking movie, man!" And my stepson's like, "Well, don't you do that."
So what about like the maneuvers and stuff? Are those actual legitimate?
I could not opine on that.
Okay.
Pilots would have to say
Yeah,
that. I don't
yeah.
know if they actually can do that.
Yeah.
But I do know that Tom Cruise made sure that they were all sitting in the back of freaking F-18s.
Yeah.
I did notice
None of
that.
that was not CGI.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
so did-
They had a camera mounted
see
there.
it. I
Where,
didn't
you know
see
how
it.
they're
They were in
moving
the
around?
back. They were in the back seat.
Yeah.
And they had to film their own selves in there because, of course, they can't have a cameraman in there.
Right.
Did
So
you have a woman at every port?
I cannot.
Like,
I
Ibn
plead the
Bit-
fifth. I plead the fifth.
Why would you ask me that on
No,
air,
I
bro?
plead the fifth.
Bro, Ibn
You
Battuta
gotta
did-
hide the sins, bro.
I'm a
Ibn
married
Battuta
man.
was
You gotta
known for
hide the
having a
sins,
wife
bro.
at every port.
Yeah,
La,
but
la, la, la.
he did
This
that
is
Islam.
very
I
Anthony, bro.
never did that stuff.
Maybe
I don't know
your
what you're
wife.
talking about.
Exactly.
I
Did
never
you
did
accept
that
Islam while you were in the Navy?
No.
I became Muslim way after I got out of the
Oh,
military.
okay.
So
You're jumping the gun there.
Yeah.
Top
So
Gun.
obviously, let's follow this in chronological order here. So
Yeah.
I did my time in the Navy. I couldn't get promoted to freaking save my life. I was always missing the cutoff, like at 10 or 20 points to get petty officer third class E4. So I said, screw it, I'm out. I got my 6 month early out, and I went ahead and went to. Sorry, is that not working?
No,
There you go.
yeah, there you go.
Technology. So I went to aircraft school so I could work on civilian aircraft. So I got a 6 month early out, and I went straight to school, and that's where I met when I met my first wife. She's actually, I knew her. We all kind of hung out in the same groups together back when we were in high school, so I already knew who she was, and so I knew her brother, and I knew some of the people that they used to all jam with because we all used to play in bands whatsoever. Like I said, the whole death metal thing. So that was still going. Some of my buddies at that time were still doing their thing, and some of them made it big. To be honest with you, names I cannot disclose at this time. I'm afraid of. I don't want to be sued for anything. So going back. So I went to aircraft school. I got married, had my first kid, and then 9/11 happened. Right, many years. 2001, September 11th happened, and I was always been an active seeker. I love reading about religion. I love reading about history. I'm a bookworm. I'm less so now because I'm super freaking busy and internet ruins everything. You can find everything online.
Yeah.
So where was I? So inshallah.
9/11.
So 9/11. 9/11 hit, and I'd already studied a little bit about Islam, but I had already been going through the Eastern religions, and I had known quite a bit about Christianity and Judaism. I remember when I started really studying hard about Christianity and reading the Bible and all the books after that, other external books to kind of get an understanding of it, is that, and I was always turned off by Christianity, and I'll tell you why. Growing up in the South, especially in Texas, Dallas, that's the home of the Bible Belt. We're talking about Southern Baptist Convention, right? All the televangelists turned me off. I found them to be all hypocritical. We had the Swaggart incident where he slept with the hooker.
God.
So that had come out back in the 90s, and so that all turned me off. I found them to be all hypocrites and freaking vipers.
Snakes. You remember that apology he made?
It was, yes.
It was a movie drama.
I think you can still find it on YouTube, actually.
Yeah, and he was just crying, "I'm sorry, the Lord, and you guys, I let you down." And he was like,
I have sinned against my Lord.
Yeah. It was like dramatic. And like, by the way, this is in the early days where like there were very few televangelists that had massive followings.
Yeah.
And he was
Remember,
one of them.
Ahmadiyya had debated him, right? And then this was kind of like a nail in the coffin after Ahmadiyya debated him.
Yep.
That he got exposed. And the funny part was, didn't he get exposed for he actually wrote a bounce check to the prostitute?
I think something happened to that.
Something like that.
It's something stupid. And she, I think, didn't she go and she's the one who was going to go and tell everybody. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm sleeping with the pastor.
Yeah. Because what happened was, I think at that time, they would pay hush money. Like they would pay, a sugar baby, right? You would just pay them, and and I guess he didn't pay enough. And boom, it just came out. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, I think we're familiar with that whole Bible Belt thing because I don't know if you guys remember growing up, we went to public school and we literally have people outside handing us those little orange pocket Bibles, shoving Jesus down our throat.
I remember back in high school when there was a McDonald's right across the street from our high school, and one day we were a bunch of long hair, concert t-shirts, Reebok high tops, acid wash jeans. This is the 80s, bro.
Yeah.
So we were all sitting in the McDonald's, and I remember this couple came up to us going, "Have you gentlemen accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?" I was like, "I can see the demons around you." I'm like, we were going, "Bro, get out of here. Get out of here, man."
Honestly, it was kind of fun to be rebellious against those people. Because you would say something like, I remember as a kid, Jahil, right? I'd be like, "F off." And like, and then, everything would make them, because they were trying to be holier than thou, right? So it was the funny thing, you would just say something to them and they would just completely lose it. I remember So I remember they would give us these Bibles, remember? And the lady was like, "You need to read it if you want to go to heaven." I'm like, "But I'm already going to heaven. I'm a Muslim, right?" I was telling her, right? And she's like, No. Jesus is the only way to heaven. But I'm like, I believe in Jesus though. But I don't believe. And it was just so simple. I remember this conversation it was. And at that time, they had no knowledge of Islam either. Because we were relatively under the radar.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Wait, you believe in Jesus? I'm like, yeah. I believe in Jesus. And she was stunned. She didn't know what to say to me after that. She's like, "Okay, just read the Bible."
Okay. Thanks.
All right, thanks. I gave it to my dad. He had a box full of these orange Bibles. Yeah, anyways. So you were turned off by... But after 9/11, though, a lot of people had a visceral hatred for
They did, but
Muslims.
it also... But this is... You'll find that with converts in the convert community. There was a lot of... shahadas during that time after 9/11. So I started looking into it more because I already read about Islam, but I thought it was just another, a heresy, kind of a branch off from Judeo-Christian. Sound like another heresy, right? Because there's tons of them.
Right.
And so I started reading into it, and I had read the Quran, but I didn't read it with open eyes, with an open heart. And something just kept tugging at me. It's hard to actually, because it's been so long. I've been Muslim for 21 years now. And so I just can't remember that actual moment where the light bulb went off. But I remember the moment that I said, this is what I want to do. This is where I feel connected. And I remember telling my wife at the time, like, when I think I want to become Muslim, and she said, over my dead body.
Oh, wow.
Why was she against it?
Post 9/11, maybe?
No. I'm not going to get in again. I don't want to be sued.
Yeah.
And my kids are watching this episode, so I don't want to say anything bad about their mother.
Of course.
So
that's respectful. Yes, sir.
So she was dead set against it for whatever reasons that she had. And so I actually embraced Islam without her knowing it, and I kept it hidden from her for a while. I remember alhamdulillah for Fajr, she was still asleep, and I'd slowly sneak out of the bed. And there was not a mess. I was living in the colony at the time in Texas. There's not a lot of messages at the time. The nearest message was in Carrollton, which is about a 30-minute drive of the way.
Dallas, right? Somewhere?
No, it's still Dallas.
Yeah.
It's kind of borders Dallas,
Okay.
Denton line. If you're familiar with Texas,
there's a colony in
it's called the Colony. It's actually
area.
a city
Yeah.
in Texas. It's a
colonizers again.
oh my god.
Oh no, Larry! That
bro.
era's over.
Dude, I'm just telling you, if I was white, I would love to go there. I'd be like, yes, the colony, we're back.
Listen, I would love to live in a plantation if I was white.
Oh my
I know,
god.
honestly. No, listen, hold on.
Whoa.
No, not with the slavery. I'm not talking about, but I'm saying, like, have you been down to Virginia where they have, like, the Monticello and, like, the old, they have massive properties and, like, huge old school, like, I don't know if you've seen those, but they're, like, old school, like, plantations where, like, they were, like, no longer slaves or anything, none of that anymore.
It's just huge open
but
land.
it's massive open and, like, it's just nice and calm and no one's around you.
You know, when you're selling a home, you can't call your if you have
Estate?
plantation windows, you can't call them plantation windows anymore.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, and you can't call they don't call your bedroom master bedroom anymore.
Oh, they...
Yeah.
Really?
What?
Where is
no, that's
that?
just ridiculous. I still call my bedroom is still the master
it's the
bedroom. Sorry,
master's. Yeah,
it's the master's bedroom.
Is that everywhere, or is that just...
No, they started changing it on Realtor.
Redfin still has master bedroom.
No.
Oh, now they changed it to owner's suite.
We don't call that in
no,
Texas.
room
It's still
one,
master's
bedroom one,
bro.
bedroom two. Is
No,
that
no,
what
no,
it is?
they have an owner's suite. But anyways,
Yes.
So
sorry.
before you get there, I just want to know. Before I didn't ask you about your background though. So were your parents Christians at all? Were you raised
Well,
Christian?
not necessarily. My dad's very a-religious.
Okay.
He doesn't swing one way or the other. But my mom grew up in a very. They're both Protestant, come from Protestant backgrounds. My mother's side of the family is very Southern Baptist or Methodist, right?
Ooh. The snake oils and stuff.
Nah, well, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't that much exposed to it. I remember there was a time. Oh God, I was probably in my early teens, probably preteen, and my mom had this end of the world crisis. She decided that we were all going to go to church, and I remember hating every single minute of it. Like going, "We're going to go Sunday and go to church." It's like going, oh, no. I remember me and my sister both hated it. That only lasted for so long, but alhamdulillah. So going back to after 9/11, so that was the moment where I said I was going to take my shahada, and I did so privately, and I hid my Islam from my wife at the time. And I remember actually sneaking out for Fajr while she was still asleep. I said, alhamdulillah, she's still asleep. She'll never know I left to go pray. And there was sometimes that
you would go to the masjid.
I would go to the masjid to go pray Fajr and Salat.
With your long hair and...
I was a clean cut guy at that time.
So was there any moments when you woke up like, hey, where are you
No.
out to?
There was a couple, though I can think of twice that may have been the case, but that's been so long ago. And then I remember there was times that I worked in the aircraft industry after I got out. So I worked at a test engine facility where we test jet engines, mostly for private jets. And so there'll be some times like when we didn't have enough work to do, so like when they didn't want to just sitting there just getting paid. So it's like if some of y'all want to cut out and we'll just leave a skeleton crew here, you can. So I'd cut out and I'd go to the masjid and go stay there till and pray Maghrib and Isha and then go home. She would never know the wiser, you know what I mean? And Ramadan was a little difficult because I remember when I fasted my first Ramadan, she hated it. She's like, she hated every minute of it. She complained, and she's
so
like,
she figured out by then that
yeah, it's better. Yeah.
I'm usually sneaking out of bed to go edit episodes and such a loser.
So eventually things went sideways, and I joined the Texas Army National Guard shortly after, and me and my wife went our separate ways. She moved out with the kids, and I stayed at the house, and then I was in the Texas Army National Guard, and I got activated to go to Iraq. Yes, Sheikh Hamza Mokbal, this is the story I told you I was going to tell. He promised I would tell this story.
Okay.
So I got deployed to Iraq during the second Gulf War under Bush, and during our time, because the Killeen is the main army base in Texas, largest army base in the country, and we were training there for a while, and I remember we were having cultural sensitivity training, how to deal with the Muslims when we get over in Iraq. How do we do? We had to learn. This is
what time the people in the army, do they know you're Muslim or not?
No.
Okay.
And actually, at this time, I kind of had left. I had stopped practicing, right? Because I was having having a hard time with my wife at the time that I just kind of abandoned it altogether. And it was during my time when I was getting ready to go to Iraq is when I refound my faith, so to say.
Subhanallah.
So it was during the time that I was hanging out with an army buddy of mine in his room, and we were just talking. He goes, "Hey, I have something for you. I think you'll be more interested in it than I would." He reaches behind his bookshelf and he grabs me this big Quran. Oh, wow. I think it was like the Muhammad Asad. I still have it in my house. It's the Muhammad Asad translation. You know how big that sucker is?
Yeah.
At that time, ISNA was sending them. I think that was giving them out for Dawah reasons. I think it was ISNA or was CARE. I can't remember which was back during that 2000 period. And so he gave it to me, and I was like, no. I said, this is for you. This is not for me. He's like, well, he said, I swear to God, just take it. He's like, I think you'll benefit more from it than me. I was like, okay. So I took it back to my dorm room, and I put it on top of my shelf. Give it that honor. It's the Quran. I put it on my top shelf, and I left it there for a couple of days. And so one night I took it down. I started reading, and I came to this ayah in the Quran. It's like even though you left, Allah bring you. It was about turning hearts. Allah turning hearts, right?
Wow.
Before you know it, I'm bawling.
Ya Allah.
I go make wudu.
Wow.
And I prayed my first Maghrib in 3 years.
You get me all choked up right now, bro.
And I prayed my first Maghrib in 3 years, and I told myself, I said, I swear to God, I'm never going back after this.
Allahu Akbar.
And so when I went to Iraq, when we finally got deployed to Iraq, and now in retrospective, I look back at it and when I reflect on it, and I was like, this is my time that too much was going on back home that I didn't have time to really reflect. And so Allah took me to Iraq because he's like, look, I can't get to you here. I need to take you away. Me and you need some one-on-one time. Allahu Akbar. So they had just the chaplaincy at the in Iraq was having these programs in order to give us some R&R. We're in the war zone. You know what I mean? Because I was in Balad, Iraq, so we're a little bit south of Baghdad. It was the largest Air Force base in Iraq, and so the Army and the Air Force were over there. And so we were doing a lot of flight ops out of there. And so the chaplaincy had started this R&R program where you could either go to Baghdad or you could go to Ur. Y'all familiar with Ur, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
Babylon.
Where Ibrahim
alayhi salam was born.
SubhanAllah.
So I had a buddy that my supervisor, because I was on the night shift, said, "Hey man, you can take my trip if you want." I said, okay, I'll take it, because I wasn't going to go. He said, take my trip if you want. I'm going to do something else later. And if you take my trip, you can work during the Christmas holidays, because I know you're not going to do Christmas. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Because I didn't work through a shift during the Thanksgiving period that we had, so I took some time off. We were able to do that. We could swap shifts.
Yeah.
So I'd take an extra day, or someone else would take an extra day. So I said, you work my Christmas shifts, and you can have Thanksgiving shifts. And by the way, I was going to go on this trip, but you can go. And so I took it and was going to Ur. And that, this is, you're going to love this story. So we went to Ur, and I remember we were giving the tour by one of the locals. We climbed they had the big the Babylon ziggurat, where they have the temple. We went up that sucker. That was amazing. And then we also went to the Tomb of the Kings. And then they took us to the house, the supposed excavation of the house of Ibrahim alayhi salam. 27 rooms and 3 courtyards. We know Ibrahim came from a very well-to-do family. I mean, his family were making idols for the people, right? So they were rich. Yeah. It made sense to me that I believe that this was it. So this was my own personal pilgrimage, right? That I was going to the birthplace of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Wow. The friend, the close one to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so right after that trip, when we were getting to go back, I broke my ankle. Oh, wow. Right away, and they had to ship me back.
Back home.
Oh, I was done. And so I went ahead and applied to go ahead and get out and be put on ready reserves and all that kind of stuff, because I told him I'm done.
So Allah kind of put you out of that situation.
And then when he needed me to see what I needed to see, he broke my ankle and sent me home.
Wait, but you did get to see it though, right?
Yes, I went to Ur.
But after
he didn't have to.
But after I was done,
activate.
I was done.
That's perfect.
Wow.
He broke my it was such a freaky accident, because we had to all be geared up. We had our metal vests on. I had my helmet on. And we were strapped. And I was coming out of the hooch, and it was a little bit on an incline, so it's above this ground, like
sorry,
maybe
what's
this
the
much.
hooch?
The place with our barracks.
Okay.
We called it the hooch. It goes back to Vietnam era, right?
Okay.
When they used to call it the hooch. So there's this platform from where it's on stilts. And of course, they have these wood stairs going down. So I tripped over the stairs, and I thought I just sprained my ankle. But when they did the X-ray, I couldn't walk on the sucker, and especially when we got off the plane back into Balad. back on the airbase. I couldn't walk. I was like, well, this is more than a sprain. So they took me to the doctor and had an x-ray. I fractured this bone right underneath, right behind on your ankle, the little bone that goes down there. I slit that sucker in half.
Oh, wow.
So but it felt like a sprain, but I broke that sucker. So they casted me up and said, you're behind enemy lines, so we got to ship you back.
What?
So I went back to Killeen, back to Fort Hood to go through rehab, and then eventually they let me out. And
so isn't that also a little bit odd too? Because sometimes don't they ship you to army hospitals that are closer? Like
they did. I went to Germany first.
Okay, right.
I went to Germany first.
Because I have a cousin that's in the military. He's the doctor in the
yeah.
US
So
Army,
they sent me. They went to Germany first,
Right.
and then they sent me back stateside, and then I was in Virginia at Lachlan, and then I went back to Dallas, and then I did rehab in Killeen for about 4 months, and they gave me the clear bill of health, and then I had to check back into my squadron here. Well, not here, but back in Dallas, in Grand Prairie. And they said, well, we're getting ready to go to Afghanistan. I said, the F. I ain't going back anywhere. I got a mess to make. I got things I need to take care of home.
Yeah.
So I told them, well, if you want to get on Ready Reserve, just ask them to do it. And they gave me the detailer's name that I was corresponding with, and she told me, write a letter to your commanding officer that you want to go Ready Reserves, blah, blah, blah. But just let you know there's a possibility of getting activated. I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to get activated again because I'm getting too old. They're not going to take me back. So she said, write a letter. So I did. And I remember writing the letters because of this tour, I went through this, went through a divorce, did this. And by the way, you can take this uniform and shove it up your ass, Captain. And that's it. And they put me on Ready Reserve, and that was done. I really put that. I was pissed.
Oh, you did?
That letter was really sent to the captain. I told him to stick it.
Oh, wow.
Said, I'm done with this. Y'all are ruining families, blah, blah, blah. And they let me out. I was been out of the uniform ever since. Alhamdulillah. So during my time during rehab, I divorced my wife. And I'll tell you why I came to this conclusion. During my time in Iraq, I was fasting Ramadan in Iraq because we were in Iraq when Ramadan came in, and I was fasting. I was hanging out with mostly just the interpreters.
Yo, that's kind of cool.
And I had one senior master chief. He was Black American. He was Muslim too. He'd been Muslim for a while, so he's pretty much hitting up the community. I told him what I was going through with my wife at the time, and he's like, "Going, look, if you stay with this woman, she's gonna put you in the fire." I was like, "When I'm done." As soon as we went stateside, I remember I called her, I need this information from you because I'm filing for divorce today. And I caught her when she was in the dentist chair getting fillings in her mouth.
Because you couldn't say much.
Because I was done. I'm like, signing this up. I'm done. I'm done with you. Here's the divorce. And there had been some infidelity too, so that kind of went in. I mean, not on my part, but that went into the picture as well. So I I divorced her, and then about 4 months later, I was on the market. I was looking for a wife. I was like, I'm never marrying a non-Muslim again. Give me a Muslim woman.
Wow.
So, alhamdulillah, it was.
How was that process? Looking for.
It was very interesting. So I went through I interviewed a couple of sisters before I married my current wife. One was a Pakistani sister, Desi sister, and she was working at an Islamic school in Irving at the time.
That didn't happen, right?
Huh? No, that didn't happen.
Alhamdulillah.
So you're gonna find this. No, you're gonna find this funny.
What? She's Paki. That's why.
Oh, okay.
We can't be
Oh,
racist.
you have something against
Pakis and
Pakistani
Indians?
sheikh?
Of course, I'm originally Indian Pakistani. I'm glad he didn't marry our kind. Our kind. Yes. Anyways, go ahead.
So
they're the worst.
So she wouldn't.
I'm sure your wife
actually
is
her
listening.
mother's the one who set up the interview between us, and so I interviewed with her. We spoke with each other, and she went back to her mom, said she didn't want to marry me because I wasn't a virgin. It's like, okay, that's all right. Alhamdulillah, khair. Move on.
True.
So I went to, so I started interviewing. I started looking at interviewing an Egyptian sister. She was non-hijabi. She hadn't been really practicing, and that was kind of as a convert. That was kind of a big deal for me. So I asked her.
You didn't do that either. Yeah.
So I was like going, how often do you pray? Do you pray 5 times? I remember asking her, how do you pray 5 times a day? And she's like going, I'm just starting to. I'm like going, and in my mind, it's like going, deal breaker,
Yeah.
we're done. Yeah. And so I remember so I get a phone call. So I was kind of looking, but I wasn't looking. And I got a phone call from a friend of mine, whose name I won't disclose, because everybody on this podcast will know if I mention it, and especially back in Dallas. So he called me and said, he goes, Brother Larry. He's Bangladeshi, so it's a very soft voice. He goes, Brother Larry, are you still looking for a wife? I said, yeah. He's like going, I know this sister. Don't worry. She has her papers.
We know where this.
Yes, like,
Yes.
H1 visa IT put it? No?
Yeah, that's what he told us. Wallahi, that's what he says. It's like when she has 3 kids from a previous marriage. It's like when at the time I was not looking for someone who had kids, but I know I had my baggage because I had 2 of my own.
That's
like
the number one reason how after my divorce I would get shot down by women who already had kids of their own. By the way,
Wow.
Wow.
But because you had kids.
because I had kids.
Subhanallah.
Never mind their own kids. By the way,
Wallah,
You
subhanallah.
know, it just-
you would think that would be something opposite, right? It would usually be the men that would like kind of say, "Oh, I don't want to maybe have to raise somebody else's kid," but I mean, because well, for whatever jahil reason, but a woman who can empathize with especially having children, knowing how difficult that is to have to. Well, I mean, whatever.
Yeah. Anyways,
So khair, inshallah. So he goes
3 and 2.
So I said, subhanallah, I'm marrying for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so I'm going to put that aside. That's not going to bother me. So I hung up the phone with him, and then his wife calls me. He goes, and she was a little bit, she's not as soft as her husband. She goes, Brother Larry, I need your email. I need this, and I need your number, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to give it to the sister. Okay. So I said, okay, here's my email. So we started emailing back and forth, and we seen that we had a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I asked her, so I said, how are you on your deen?
Yeah.
And she answered all the right questions. And I remember she tested me with a question too. She's like, how do you feel about luck? I was like, luck doesn't exist. Everything's from the qadr of Allah. subhanahu wa
Yes,
ta'ala.
sir, my man. That's why if you get cars, that happens sometimes.
She said, check mark. that was a big plus for her.
Mashallah.
Yeah, but I saw that comment you just made.
No.
By the way,
Anyways,
hold
Brother
on.
Larry,
Wait,
continue with your story.
We're gonna address
This is his time, bro.
Hold
He
on.
came all the way from Dallas. Go
Then
ahead.
you should have
Don't
interrupted
listen to
him.
Keep going. Just keep
So
going.
we're gonna
Keep
say
going.
this.
No, Mort wants to mortize
Yeah.
you, so I want
Mort-
to hear it.
Exactly.
He wants to be a mortician right now.
Exactly. So just because you say everything qadr Allah, you have to tawakkul, ya sheikh.
Yes.
You have to make the best decisions and use everything at your disposal
right.
before you make these
You're
dumb
right.
decisions.
No, I mean,
You
it's
can't say,
right.
I'm going to
I
go
mean,
out
it's the Qadr Prime.
you
I made
can't say, I'm going to
Is
go
this
out
about
and
the
walk in the
card?
street and jump in the street and say, oh, the
I
car
mean,
hit me.
it's
So
the
qadr Allah.
I mean, it's the Khara, bro. Anyways, go ahead, Larry. This is
We'll talk about this later.
this is a
really
non-issue.
interesting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, inshallah.
Not an issue, but he brought it up.
Inshallah. We will again.
so you
So-
made this istikhara.
So I said, I think we should, do
He
you
did
think we
make
should?
it
So
so
I asked my, the woman I was talking to who would become a wife, I was like, I said, do you want to talk? And she's like, yeah, I think we seem to be hitting it off. Let's call each other. So I gave her my number, not even 3 minutes, not even 5 minutes. Ring, ring, ring. She's giving me a call. I got so freaking nervous. I was like, Assalamu alaikum. And we hit, alhamdulillah, we hit it off and all that stuff. It was going good. I mean, we had, those conversations that would last till 3 a.m. kind of thing. It was beautiful, alhamdulillah. But I remember when I had to finally just disclose to her, I was like, I just want to let you know, I'm really embarrassed. I don't know how to tell you. She's like, but I got tattoos all over the place. I was like, I'm sleeved here. I got tattooed. I'm tattooed on my back. I'm socked. She's like I appreciate that. That was very nice that you disclosed that to me. But, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already forgiven you for those.
SubhanAllah.
I was like, alhamdulillah.
That's dope,
alhamdulillah.
dude. That's dope.
To be honest though, I think because tattoos have become a little more open now, that a lot of revert brothers are, I've noticed, especially I do that on TikTok a lot, right? And people are becoming a little more open to the idea that, okay, before they were practicing or before they were Muslims, they got this done. But at that time,
Yeah. Yeah,
even
that was
now,
major
people
stigma.
still
That's before the
face-
whole craze started.
Yeah,
No,
this
but
is back
even-
in 2007, 2008. Yeah,
yeah,
so-
and even now, some traditional masajid, you go in, they're like, "A'udhu billah, you have a tattoo, you can't enter the masjid, that you can't make wudu." Like, they'll say things like this, right?
Yeah.
Like, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because there was a brother on TikTok who became a Muslim in prison, got released recently. By the way, he was in touch with Tayyiba Foundation. They have provided him
SubhanAllah.
resources.
Mashallah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but anyways, he has face tattoos, like very evident all over his face, whatever. And people are like, even though he's talking about Islam on TikTok, right? People are just leaving comments like, "Brother, you have to remove those tattoos. Brother, you have to do this. Brother, and I'm thinking like,
Do you know how painful it is to get these tattoos removed?
and I'm saying it wouldn't do any good because you scar, right? Like
Yeah.
if you get them, it's gonna look even worse, right? You're just gonna scar yourself. Yeah, I believe you. Yeah, you're gonna, and but the thing is like, the whole point is that we believe that Allah forgives sins,
No.
right? It doesn't matter. I mean, even if that sin was something like, for example, if somebody before Islam was unchaste, you can't undo that.
No.
Right? But Allah forgives it.
No.
Because you didn't know. Same thing, that there are certain things that you do, decisions that you make that are irreversible.
Yeah.
Right? Like can be a tattoo
Yeah.
for most cases, right? But Allah forgives it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not the whole point, and this is why the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I want people to get the point out there that when you see people with tattoos or you see them, don't judge them. because you don't know. Like even a Muslim who has it, there are some Muslims who didn't grow up to practicing.
Even in the Muslim world.
They didn't know, right? There are some even Bedouin cultures where the women will tattoo their faces. They have like certain things they put on there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know,
Yeah.
right? But if they know, if you want someone to
It
become
was a
better,
sign of beauty for them.
yeah. But if you want someone to become better, you can't just chastise them. This is going back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
There's a balance between there's a time to be harsh and a time to be empathetic.
Yeah. You said you tried getting a tattoo removal too?
No.
Okay.
I knew exactly what it is. I knew
Okay.
it'd be very expensive.
Yeah.
Because I'll show y'all later, inshallah.
Okay.
But it'd be
Yeah.
very expensive, and it would be very painful, and it just leaves scarring. And inshallah, I always tell everybody, like, on the day of judgment, I'm going to be raised without them anyway, so I'm good.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
I mean, ya Rab.
Yep.
Wow.
I think the only ones that can be removed, I mean, or affordable, if they're gang tattoos. Certain government
Yeah,
organizations,
no, I would
they
definitely
will,
get those off.
yeah, they remove them for free if you want to get off, or they have a program, but it's usually for gang tattoos. But other stuff they don't do. Yeah.
I know a friend who was trying to get this done, and I found out that you could actually buy tattoo removal machines on eBay.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
I've never seen that.
You can buy the actual equipment and do it yourself.
They're like $2,000-$3,000, or
No, I'm not telling
Yeah,
you
yeah.
to do it. I'm sure that it requires
Yeah.
some
But
level
it's
of training, but because it's a slow process, and
Yeah.
going to the person and get, or the technician to get it done each visit is a lot of money.
I heard a lot of people. I
you
heard
just buy
people
the-
prefer the other people doing it because someone else is inflicting pain. You're going to go through with it. Then if you do it yourself, you're just going to stop. Type thing.
Yeah.
So that's people pay a lot of money if they have the money, bro.
I mean, the tattoo removal process
Super.
though is like it takes like years. Like you have to
Yeah,
go
it takes a
through
long
it many
time.
sessions, especially if you have a larger. So what we're doing is taking layers upon layers off your skin.
Yeah, and it doesn't come off at the first sweep.
no, it doesn't.
It
I
takes a
remember
lot. You
watching
have
it
to
online.
break up the ink.
Yeah.
And let the blood absorb.
I
it.
remember watching a guy who had like on his face and his neck, and he's showing on YouTube his tattoo removal thing. Just watching him, I was in pain, bro. The guy was like turning all red. His eyes were watering. And
It's
he
bad.
kept
It's
taking
painful.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Anyways,
Anyways.
back to the story. You told her that you had tattoos, and she gave you the right answer.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
And then it was like,
she's
what, go
she's a
time?
very pious woman, mashallah.
Mashallah.
It's completely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah gave me the right person at the right time. I
Alhamdulillah.
swear to God,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah.
And which
favor.
ethnic background?
My wife's?
Yeah.
She's a Latino convert. She's
Wow.
Latina. She's from Mexico. Ciudad de Mexico. Sí.
Wow.
She said-
so you
she's-
probably
she-
speak Spanish now too a little bit, right? You
Poquito,
get it.
poquito.
Poquito.
Very poquito.
Un poquito.
Well, come on, y'all should be speaking Spanish. This is Chicano land, man.
No, man. Dude, honestly, the
It's
only
Chicago.
Spanish. So let me tell you this story. So we got into like high school, or back. I don't know about now, but back in the days, the U.S. program was that you had to take another language because they wanted them to be diversified, right? So like, okay, you got to take Spanish 1, and it came out of a Muslim school, right? By the way, remember CPSA? And there's no concept.
Did they have a Spanish class there?
No.
Okay.
They did.
They did.
Yeah, but no one took it serious because we're learning Arabic too, right? Like, whatever. Anyways, but when I got into high school, they're like, okay, you have to do this. I'm like, all right, so I did Spanish 1, right? And Spanish 2 came, like second year, sophomore year, right? And I went to my guidance counselor. I'm like, guys, listen, I speak English, I speak Urdu, I speak Arabic. You want me to speak a 4th language? I'm like, guys, these people
I
don't
heard that
speak.
should have been easier for you.
Yeah,
You'd be a
but-
polyglot.
But the thing is that,
But he was a lazy bum.
yeah, I was lazy. I didn't want to do it. Yeah, he's right. I was very lazy.
We were all.
And
We
the thing
still
is,
are.
I don't know, but so I convinced my guidance counselor that I'm cultural enough that I don't have to take another
That's pretty
language.
dope, actually.
Yeah, because I'm like, look, these guys don't speak any language besides English.
Yeah.
I speak 3 languages already right now, so I'm better off than most of these people. It's like, all right, fine, we'll satisfy that.
That's
that credit.
awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't have to do Spanish too. But then I picked up more Spanish because people thought I was Puerto Rican.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
did
They would
Wow,
come,
I would not
get
put
that
that-
papi. They come and talk to me.
Bro,
And I'm
you
like,
look
"Oh."
Puerto Rican. That's a fact.
And so everywhere I'd go, they speak Spanish to me. I even had someone try to do the Santeria thing on me, bro. Like, the broom and the smoke.
Oh my
and coming in.
God.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Get that away,
get
bro.
out of here. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, but so I picked up a little Spanish that way because of that.
Mashallah.
What's
Yeah.
up with this? So after that, what happens next?
So we got married, alhamdulillah, and I remember what's funny is my stepchildren, they're great, but it was a little bit of a transition. Alhamdulillah that my kids and her kids came together. They still talk to each other, FaceTime each other, Snapchat, the whole 9 yards. They're all in their 20s now. So and it was a blessing because we were both going through some things, and I think I needed her more than she needed me to help with the transition. But I remember, and I was still working in the aircraft industry at the time, and she was going to school. She was going to Richland Community College at the time. It's a Dallas Community College system down there, and she was working on her degree. And I was telling her, and she was asking me, she needs some help with her political science stuff, and I love political science. So I was telling her this about how the government works here, because she's from Mexico. She's like going, what does this mean? What does that mean? Especially how state government is different than federal government.
Oh, yeah.
On how things run. So I was telling her some things about that. She's like going, why do you know so much? You seem like you know a lot of stuff. Why don't you go back to school? It's like going, I don't know. It's like going, the government would pay for it. And she goes, what? The government would pay for it? She's like going, Nenny, that's stupid. You need to go back to school. Stop being stupid. And she put the foot up my rear for me to go back to school. And so I went and I applied to go to Dallas Community College too. I finished me and her both finished our 2 years there, got our core knocked out. She transferred to UNT, University of North Texas, and I went to SMU, Southern Methodist University, on almost a full ride. They gave me...
That's a GI Bill?
I used the GI Bill through Dallas Community, and then I got a half scholarship from SMU, and then I used my Hazelwood and some of my other stuff to help flip the cost on that as well. So my last 2 years at SMU were fully funded, either through that or in the other. And so I graduated SMU and I got a 3 degrees. I got a major in political science, major in history, and a minor in Arabic.
Wow, what a gangster, dude.
Yeah, and then I went to law school right after that.
You went to law school?
No.
So you do the LSATs?
I hate the outside.
So
I'm a Juris Doctor too, yes.
No.
Yeah, bro.
I was thinking about doing the LSAT,
dude.
bro.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So we're all going to unpack it, check.
Wow.
I'm full of surprises. The story, I got a bunch of stories. So alhamdulillah, I went to law school. I finished law school. And then this is where we're going to get into the business portion. So, of course, right before COVID hit, I went and got my mediator certification. I started my own business. It was first called TLR ADR mediation. Thank you, Samia, for the TLR. That's my stepdaughter. Mm-hmm. She's a marketing genius, by the way. If you need any help, I'll shoot you up.
Okay. So this is for like arbitration services?
We'll get to the arbitration in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
So it was just mediation at first, right? I just got my mediation certificate. So it's TLR. T means talk, listen, resolve. My stepdaughter came up with that all by herself and helped me with the logos. Wow. Mashallah. As I said, she's a marketing genius. You hear that, Samia? I hope you get a lot of business, inshallah. So I started that, and of course, I was working on my website, trying to get business cards, trying to get out there, and then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So nothing during COVID. COVID was a mess. And I just signed on with Texas Department of Insurance as one of their on their roster for mediators to help with the new. At that time, it was coming across the nation, sweep of the nation in regards to dealing with surprise billing, right, against the insurance providers and insurance carriers and medical providers in regards to surprise billing. I'm sure out of network costs. I'm sure you all get that. You're like going, I don't remember that bill. Where did that come from? Why is it $5,000? Why did my insurance cover that? That's where we come in. Mm-hmm. So I mediate between them two to try to resolve the bills. And that was kind of slow going at first. And so there was nothing in 2020. Didn't start hitting until 2021, starting to go into the post-COVID era. And so I started getting some cases from them, and I got my first divorce case. It's completely, they found out about, because the niche I was trying to get into was for the communities. I'm here to handle issues and try and resolve things Islamically as well as from the secular law. I'm trying to bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. And I already gotten the green light from my mashayikh, like we're going to give you the ijazah to handle this stuff. Mm-hmm. We trust that you can deal with it. So alhamdulillah, my sheikh gave me permission, gave me a nice letter in that regards to handle these mediations. So I had my divorce case, alhamdulillah, we settled, and then I went dry for a while, but I was still handling the insurance cases. And then my partner now, Sheikh Nadeem Bashir, who is the imam at Epic East Plano Islamic Center in Dallas. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, the reciter?
No, he's not. That's Sajid. No, that's Sajid Gould.
Okay.
No. He's the imam, because we have Yasser Qadi, who's the resident scholar for Epic. Then we have Bajor, Muhammad, Bajor, Ustad Bajor, and then we have Sajid Gould, who is the Qadi, who relays all the Tadwa. His recitation is off the charts, mashallah. And then Sheikh Nadeem Bashir, he's been the longest serving imam there. He's helped lead the community. The youth love him. The people love him. So he comes in, and I've known him. He was my Umrah buddy. So we made Umrah back in 2017. with Sheikh Khalil Abdul Rashid. He's the Harvard chaplain now, if you're not familiar with him. He's the one who gave me my license to go ahead and take care of arbitration matters and mediation for the community. So he hits me up and goes, hey, Larry, Yunus. So I'm talking to a couple other shuyukh and we want to start this thing. I said, great, because I'm already freaking certified. We can do this. I already got something going. Let's do it. Allah's bringing us together at the right time. And so the other two shuyukh could not dedicate the time that we were willing to dedicate to it. He's like, we're having to take care of the community. This is a lot for us to do. Y'all handle it. Just keep it. If y'all want to keep us in the loop, let us know. So we put them on as consultants. And you can find us at TLR ADR.org.
You should just call it TLDR.
No.
Too long, didn't read.
It means talk, listen, resolve alternative dispute resolution, right? TLR ADR. So we have our own website and everything. So he came together and said, this is what he goes, Yunus, this is what I want to do. So we had everything laid out. So I drafted up a business plan for us. I formed us an LLC, and I came up with an operating agreement for me and him. And we started taking on cases slowly but surely. And we got our website team we hired a website team to come up with our website, and we got business cards going, and we started trying to get the word out. And we did a official opening after Ramadan last year. And we slowly started getting cases. Mostly handling divorces, but and he wanted to also do premarital counseling, and he wanted to do nikah services as well, but the nikah thing hasn't quite panned out the way we had wanted it to, so we're gonna end up knocking that off. But he's still offering a pretty good premarital counseling service. He goes through a certain website where they do algorithms and stuff like that to try and pair them up, see where they differ in regards to certain issues, and then he brings them together and he goes over and says, let's talk, and he does a counseling session with them. And if they pass the counseling session, we give them a nice little certificate, and they can bring it to the judge or whoever they're going to marry them, and they get like half off of registration fees or something like that. Wow. So alhamdulillah, so that's been going. He's been
making marriage more simple. That's pretty.
Well,
beautiful.
we're trying. So we're trying to, even though we've been doing a lot of divorces, we're trying to do a holistic approach, and I'm about to start a couple of things. So he's doing the premarital part, and we want to start doing premarital mediation as well as marital mediation. So we want to preserve marriages and reconcile marriages and come up with contract, agreements for them to stay married if they're having problems, and if not, we're there for divorce as well. But we also want to hit it from the get-go, cut it from the root. So doing premarital counseling as well as premarital mediation, and have them come up with the prenuptial agreement. And alhamdulillah, I can say that we did our first prenuptial agreement a couple weeks ago. I had the couple was very happy, signed it. It's good to go. Thank you, Naveed Hussain, because we used your template, bro. Be careful with putting your intellectual property up there for purchasing, because I bought that sucker.
But that's amazing, because it kind of gives hope, because I always tell some people that, hey, sometimes that the prenup is quiet.
100.
And it can be, we talked about this with Naveed too, that it's not always just for the man, it's for the woman as well too, right? Women can benefit from a prenuptial agreement.
100%.
And I think at the face value though, right, I think if the prenuptial agreement is just saying, hey, we're going to, in case of X, Y, and Z, we're going to execute this according to these Islamic laws, right? And I think any Muslim, right, shouldn't have an issue with that, right? I mean, generally speaking, if you believe that these are how it should be, I think it's a great endeavor. I think the idea of reclaiming the idea of, a prenup being a negative thing, or like it's usually associated with men trying to hold money back, right? If you can kind of reclaim that and say, no, it's not about that, it's about exercising rights. It'd be a good thing.
So one of the things we did is me and Sheikh Nadeem took the nikah class that Naveed does with Sheikh Joe Bradford. And we've been courting Joe for a while. Joe knows about us as well. He's actually referred us a case, and we successfully settled a case here in the Chicago area.
Oh, so you guys do this nationally?
Chicago is our next open. We want to branch out here, and we want to bring you brothers on board.
Sounds
and
like Dana White from the UFC, bro. He's
That's
like
awesome.
Bringing his company here. I like it.
And we're going to be mediating a case from Atlanta right before Ramadan, and that came to us completely by word of mouth.
So Larry, let's just pause for a second, and I just want to know a little bit about what the most common cases are. I just want to get an idea of what issues you're dealing with regards to couples. Let's first start with the premarital counseling aspect, and then we'll talk about the actual couples who are getting divorced for a reason.
Sure. No, I don't have my hands on the premarital counseling. Sheikh Nadeem Bashir takes care of that completely. That's out of my realm. I'm not a sheikh. I just know some things, and enough to get me in trouble. But that's his.
No,
party
but
altogether.
typically, do you know what reason, what their issues are that are being resolved, or do you ever?
I don't know. I
haven't.
haven't really picked his brain on
Okay.
what he's been dealing with on that one. But I can tell you on the divorce side, it's always about, and there's two things. The questions I normally get is like, what kind of couples are you getting through the divorce? And I was telling this to Sheikh Hamza Mokbul before I came here, is that there's two times. You have the immigrants, and then you have the millennials. With the immigrants, we're finding a lot of undisclosed, especially to the wife, mental issues. There's mental illness amongst the immigrant community that are not being disclosed upon the marriage contract, and it's usually on the part of the husband. And we see a lot of serious bipolar issues, anger outbursts, untreated, and of course, and mostly in the Desi community. I haven't seen too much in the Arab community. It's mostly in Desi community. It's like taboo. Can't talk about mental illness.
Big bipolar problem.
Really?
Do you use bipolar problem, or the women just piss them off? Or?
No. It's
Wow. Do you have bipolarism, Sheikh?
Shit, you're going to be branded as a misogynist.
Yes.
How do you
cancel
feel about
culture.
I've been trying so hard.
Yeah, but hold on. I
Keep working
want
on
to
it.
push back on it just for a second, because we live in a culture today where I don't know about bipolarism, but everybody usually is branded a narcissist or like whatever, right? So people, I mean, are these like diagnosed cases of like bipolarism, or is it just someone's opinion that that person's a bipolar, right? Or that person is a narcissist? Or that, because that's a very different thing.
Right. What we're finding is, especially when they start going through marital counseling, because they try to work things out, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we believe your husband's bipolar."
Oh.
And so they'll have him diagnosed. And of course, sometimes they are diagnosed and they just don't disclose this to the bride. The families will not tell the bride or the bride's family. And then they get married together and then come to find out, well, if I'd known this, I wouldn't have married him. And now it's a freaking mess. Because now now the kids are resenting him.
Yeah.
We're having serious anger outbursts. And then he's disclosing private things to the kids, trying to pit the kids against each other. It's only and I swear, I've only seen this in the Desi community.
So that might be a kind of related idea that, and unfortunately, this is something very common in the Desi thought, is that, oh, he's just acting out right now. When he gets married, he'll be fixed. Like,
There may be some of that.
You know, no, seriously, they say that. Like, oh, well, get married and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, but sometimes an ex-spouse will also accuse a man of being bipolar or narcissist, and then come to find out he ends up getting married again, and he's determined to be totally fine.
Totally fine.
But that's what I was saying. Was like, is it a medical diagnosis, or is it just someone giving their opinion?
Because sometimes during a divorce, messy accusations start happening. You know,
right?
And
but during the interview process, because when we do our initial consultations, is sometimes we'll talk to them together, or we'll talk to them individually.
Yeah.
And it's the case progresses, and we start to see as soon as we're talking to the husband, and we start getting different sides of the story, like going, yeah, this brother's got issues, and we'll say, yeah, this brother's got some issues, and the wife is just at her ends wit. She's like, going, I can't even be around him. He's shouting and yelling in the house. It's like, and the kids don't want to have anything to do with them. He's throwing things, cussing. I mean, serious bad anger outbursts.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that also, aside from other communities, there are people that have also immigrated that are outside of the Desi community as well, but they come from places where there may be perhaps some PTSD there as well too, right? Where that kind of plays in, because they didn't grow up with it, but then experiencing what they experience, they're suffering PTSD, and those signs manifest themselves later on. Right?
I don't doubt that.
Yeah, highs and lows, and just maybe certain triggers, and they don't know why they're feeling that way, but they are. There's some trigger for them, and they get married, and then lo and behold,
all of it comes out.
Yeah, all of it comes out because marriage, like being with a partner, sometimes can stretch you. I mean, it can really put some pressure on you.
It'll give you the sweetest moments of your life and the most bitter moments of your life.
Right, and so sometimes those bitter moments just make you break down, and then all the negative just just throws up.
So with the second group, with the millennials, what we're finding the problem is it's either this complete mismatch, no premarital counseling whatsoever. They don't, they have these unreasonable expectations and ideas of what marriage is. They think it's going to be, Cinderella and Prince Charming kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to be all hunky-dory, butterflies and rainbows and all that. And then when they get to the divorce thing, the woman wants to run him through the ringer. I want to take everything from you. I want half. So we're finding that
doesn't happen in the
feminism.
Muslim community.
Well, I swear to God, bro.
Really?
Yes, especially with the millennials, and I equate a lot of this with feminism that is very, very prominent in the, becoming starting to ruin our women. To be honest with you, I'm going to get canceled. And so they come into this idea that they want him living in his car.
Yeah.
They want, I have a right to this, I have a right to that, I want your income, I want your dividends, I want your stocks, I want to have the house, even though their name's not on the title. Nothing. They want like half. Now, to be honest with you, according to state law, they are entitled to that. Islamically, they're not. So it's interesting when they come to us, we want this done Islamically, and I go, but sister, you want to take him for everything he's freaking worth.
No. It's worse than that, Larry. They want the best of the Sharia, what the Sharia is offering, and they want to ignore what goes against them or is not in favor of them from the Sharia perspective, and then they want the side of the secular law that also
they want to cherry pick. They want a buffet. That's what they want.
So there's this brother that I know he's going through a divorce, right? And
who's going through a divorce?
This brother I know.
Oh,
I don't want to. You don't need information.
No.
Shit.
I thought you said a
nosy.
name. I thought you said a name.
No, I'm not like you, Sheikh.
This is getting uncharacteristic of you.
I know.
That
very unbecoming of you, Sheikh.
You want to know people's identity. And
bro.
Anyway, I guess I'm affected by my new environment now.
Oh, he's blaming you because you're the new element here. He's the new environment is here. Are you blaming your guests?
I've been dwelling with.
No, we've been with you for 20 years. It's not us.
Bosom buddies.
Anyways, so you're right. Sim is right that a lot of times women will want the mahar. They want to pay for everything, all the stuff, which is fine. We accept that as men Islamically. This is our duty.
No.
Right? And then, obviously, you said when they go to divorce, they find out there's a way to
get
profit from it.
To get everything.
They can monetize the divorce, right? And so the brother was like, fine. If she wants to take half, I want half my mahar back. And so he's like, so he's trying to fight in court and say, listen, this is our culture. I gave it to her, but it was on a condition that we get married. And since she wants to, take half of what I have, Islamically it's not allowed. I want to get half the mahar back. Because he's like, listen, I know it's not right, but she's not doing right either. So I if they want to fight fire with fire, and look, I don't agree with it, but I think Islamically, men should just do what they have to do regardless, right? I mean, if we have to give mahar, we're not expecting to get it back. However, I think we're going to see more bizarre outbursts like this when you have parties that are more interested in profiting from the divorce rather than letting things go peacefully and saying, you go your way and I go my way. And it's sad because ultimately, the people who suffer the most are usually the children. Yeah, right? They're torn in the middle of this where they have to now choose between mother and father, and Islamically that's a big thing, right? Like and not only we don't know how our children will come out, right? Allah knows that, but we will certainly be questioned about, did we facilitate an environment for them with the proper tarbiyah and raising them and giving them the tools they needed to succeed, right? And if you're putting your spouse against or your children against your other spouse, at the end of the day, like that's gonna have a negative impact on that child, right? Well, and then majorly. Imagine, like I've heard of stories where people are been kept away from their fathers, and they get to be 18 and they meet their father, and they realize, wait a minute, my father wasn't this horrible, mean guy that my mother said he was, and they end up now resenting the mother.
Yeah, half those guys.
Right. It's a mess, man.
And it's so.
Half those guys.
Well, one of our best friends is like that. Remember, he talked to us about how when he was young, his mother would say all these bad things about his dad, and as he got older, he found his dad, and he met with him. He found out he's a great dude, and found out how his mom was completely changing his perception of his dad over the course of his years, and he found out that his dad was like a really nice guy and great to hang out with, and he really lamented not having that relationship that every kid would normally have had had he had a father.
I think it works both ways, though, right? I mean, I was just using this example, but I think it works both ways, right? Like, I think people need to be, number one, fear Allah when you're getting divorced, because you're going to be accountable for what you say. and what impact you're having.
And what you earn
Yeah.
from the divorce.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
shouldn't that money that someone
A
who's
person.
that someone is getting that is not in that they're not entitled to from the Sharia, isn't that money haram?
It's through oppression, of course.
No,
it is.
yes, of course.
It's through
Yeah,
oppression.
Yeah, and then the eating from people's
literally,
wealth.
you know, like
Yeah.
there's a concept in fiqh called ghasb. Ghasb is taking money is different than stealing.
Yeah.
Because stealing is taking when the owner is not watching. That's sariqah. Ghasb is actually this coercion of taking money without somebody's control, whether it's through physical or using other people or a system to take money away from that person.
That's
Which there's no barakah in that money.
Yeah.
That's a whole different
It's like
ball
forced.
game.
It's like an armed robbery.
It's
pretty much,
forced.
like armed, right?
Yeah, no, it's forced to the degree that the person, you're putting them in a cornered situation where they can't do anything.
Yeah.
But you both know that they're doing something wrong,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why it's very destructive, and that money has no barakah in it.
And, you know, to be honest, I think a lot of this is also starting off too, because unfortunately there are, and you know, I'm not trying to just blame women. There are brothers out there now in this millennial generation that are expecting their wives to pay half the bills.
That is true.
Right?
Oh yeah, that's
And-
such a dip. I want to beat those guys. butts, man.
Honestly, I would
wish
love
beat 'em
to
all.
smack the crap out of them and say, where is your rajula or your
It
shuja'a?
should be all of
Or
it. They should be
futuwa,
paying all of it.
right? No, I'm saying, what I'm saying,
Talk about the women, right?
no, I don't want the women to pay anything.
Oh, I thought you wanted to pay all of it. Is that why you wanted to marry a
I
doctor,
didn't catch
bro?
that.
I'm just joking.
Hockey said, y'all are all trolls to each other.
Yeah,
I'm
this
seeing
guy,
that now. I am
bro.
seeing that now.
Yeah, no, but the thing is that the
I'm
idea
joking,
is
bro.
that, like,
No, it is.
you know, they have this thing in Yemen, they say, "Ta'al fil ulum al-marjalah," like this school of men, right? Because you have to learn that, listen, it should be a dishonorable thing for you to ask your wife to have to pay for you, let alone anybody else. As a man, you should be able to feel that I can take care of my own. And, you know, there was a sheikh that was recently asked a question. Someone had asked the sheikh, can it be considered to be sadaqah what I give to my parents? And the sheikh said, what kind of foolish question is this?
Allahu Akbar. I know where this is going.
He's like, Allah honored you. Like he said the sadaqah is the part of the money that you want to get rid of.
So,
Meaning Allah, it's an expiation for sins, or it's like the filth you're trying to get rid of, right? But your parents gave you the best of their money, the
Allah.
best of their wealth,
Yes, sir.
and you want to now give them the filth of their wealth.
Subhanallah.
So what kind of, like, what shame do you have? Even if you're not a religious person,
Yeah.
where is your honor? Where is your manhood?
Don't
Where,
consider sadaqah. Consider it a fard. That's
right,
what he's
exactly.
trying to say.
It's exactly. It's something that you should feel proud to do, even if you're not a religious person. These are your parents.
Yeah.
Same way, this is your family, your children, your spouse,
Yes, sir.
people that use that guard your honor, that carry your legacy. You should invest it. This is an investment for you, right? If you aren't doing it, then who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And then you want to worry about who has a say over your children and over your household. You don't get a say, my friend.
Yeah.
If you can't provide and you can't man up to that plate, you don't. I'm sorry, you don't get the say that you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
Because if a woman and your children can't rely on you, then what good are you to them?
Yeah. That's when your job. You're supposed to be wielding the sword,
Yeah.
son.
And then you want to tell your child to work hard and do this, and what are you doing?
Going on that note, on some of the cases that we're dealing, because we're dealing, to be honest with you, we're dealing with a lot of women asking for khula, a lot of women asking for khula, and to be honest with you, some of these men are not stepping up to the plate like they should be.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm dealing with one case right now. I'll try and keep it as vague as possible, but she's been paying for everything for the last 9 years. And she, well, the thing is that she's up to her head.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
course.
she's like going, but I could tell that she still cares for him.
Yes,
She
of
still
course.
loves him.
Yeah, yeah.
But she wants him to get your crap together, bro,
Yeah.
and then come back to me. When
Rightfully
you're
so.
ready to take care of us, the door's open.
You know, there was a sister that came on to, we do some kind of activities on TikTok, so she was online. She came in and was seeking nasiha. She has a husband that goes out on Jama'ah for like not only 30 days, 40 days, 2 months, 3 months, so long as he's been gone is 6 months from the house, right? And she says he's a good person. He treats me kindly. He doesn't, there's no infidelity, whatever it is. He has multiple wives, whatever, but the thing is that
That little small detail.
it doesn't matter. I mean, she knows about it. It's halal for him, right?
No, of course.
But he doesn't leave any provisions for her when he leaves. and she's made to like pay for everything, and she tries to remind him. And according to her, I don't know the brother's story, but she just mentioned. I'm thinking if this is true, but
I'm pretty sure
the thing is that, you know, like now she has to take loans to pay for it. And when she's telling him this, he's saying, well, you have to trust in Allah. Allah will make a way for you. Like he's considering that he has to go out, you know, for this job.
What a life this dude is living. Going 6 months away from his wife and kids and saying, "Damn, trust in Allah." Well, he just chilling eating Jamaat food, bro.
Yeah.
People cooking for him. He ain't got to pay nothing.
Yeah,
man.
massaging his feet while he's making pleasure, right? But the point being is like, the way they justify, and like when she brings ayat of the Quran or a hadith, right? There are certain, because there are very strong hadith about providing for your family and being there for them. Like, you don't know the religion, don't talk to me about it, right? Like, you don't know it, right? Like, you have the wrong understanding. But I'm saying a person can be a good person. He can be, you know, a person that has good qualities. But certain things like this, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think financial strains in marriages can be the things that cause everything else to collapse, unwind.
Yes, 100%.
It exacerbates every other problem that you have in a relationship.
You know.
And that's one thing.
Or you could just live really simply, which is fine.
Yeah.
You could still love each other and be a loving couple and live very simply.
That's financial. I mean, right? You have to plan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you have
but
to
some
live
people, because we were talking about 50-50, a lot of times people, they have to have this certain lifestyle, so they want this 50-50 thing, but that ends up being very much impeding on their marriage. Or if they put all that aside, be like, hey, we're just going to live really simply. We'll be a single income household because that's what we think is best. And we just live really simply. And that's
so
just
so I would say that also, I would say in that regard, the nasiha would apply to some of the sisters, right? Yeah. You have to understand that, hey, just because your best friend has a Lexus and a Mercedes doesn't mean that you're going to also have one, right? Oh, just because you have a 5-bedroom house does that mean
get new friends, bro. No competition, bro.
I'm saying, no, have the same friends, but understand your position. Allah has given you what you have, and you should be happy with it, content. If your husband makes $80,000 a year, be easy on him. Find a way for it to work. Help him make that work for both of you, right? If he makes more, alhamdulillah. But stay within, like, don't be the reason why he has to go over the budget.
That's what we call keeping up with the Joneses.
Right. Yeah.
It's like going, she's got a BMW, why don't I have a BMW? They got a big two-story home, why don't I have a big story home? I want that, you know, you're always looking, and this kind of goes against what the Prophet ﷺ says, like when you want to look at your position, don't look at the people who are above you, look to the people who are below you, because this is going to instill that sense of gratitude, right?
Absolutely.
Because when you look at people who have more than you, you become ungrateful. Why don't I have that? Why do they have that? And then you're feeding that envy in your heart. You're putting that disease in your heart where you envy the other person. And then we have other complications on top of that.
And then the other thing is that you have to remind men that, listen, don't be stingy with your money. Marriage costs money, man. Yeah. If you think marriage is cheap, don't get married.
Yeah, bro.
Right? I mean, you have to, and you should want to spend on. This is, I mean, in my opinion, a true man, there's no better feeling than earning money with your hands and spending on people you love.
Of course.
That is like, it's a sign of saying, hey, I did that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to provide that. Alhamdulillah. I feel like, and the thing is that also, and this comes back, is that family members should appreciate what husbands do. Right? Don't think. Yeah, it's something he has to do, but it doesn't mean you can't show appreciation for it. Because when you show appreciation for what he's doing, it makes him want to do more. Right? If someone just, it's my job, I got to do it here. We pop the money in the table. All right, whatever. Do this. Do that. It becomes very robotic. He doesn't see like that there's value in what he's doing. Right? And when he feels valued, he's gonna do more. Right, generally speaking. So, because there's a lot of people I've seen this with brothers that have complained before that. They're trying their hardest. Like, they're working out. They're taking care of the body. They're going to work. They're paying the bills, but they're being compared to other men, right? And that's one thing that will kill a man's like his desire for his wife. Meaning that like when he's trying to like because he's saying, oh well, then you like that person, go be with that person. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that idea in your head, right? You start thinking like, oh, I'm less than, right? Like she's thinking she could have married somebody different than me, right? Yeah. So comparing, even happening the vice versa, right? Like there are men that will complain about their wives and compare them to other people's wives, right? Don't do that. That's a killer of any relationship, right? If you want to see a change, you don't have to mention that somebody else is doing something. Find a way to make that change happen amongst yourselves, right? If that means you being a leader in taking it, like in saying, hey, let's say you're upset that your wife gained a few pounds. Okay, you don't have to sit there and chastise her for it, but you say, hey, let's start going to the gym. Let's go to the walk. Or come with me. We're gonna do it. Make it so that it's like you don't realize that you're making fun of her. Not like Sheikh Amr does. You know what I mean? Like, but don't do
I
that.
would never.
Well, if I have an alternative. You can say, let's go to the gym, but you can go, damn, honey, that's hot stuff. You never looked any better than you have before in your life.
But you know what? Here's the thing, though, right? I think the idea is that, and I think that's why what you're mentioning, the premarital counseling, I want you to talk about this too, is that I think it brings the core of the marriage, right? And when you have problems, if you can come back to the core of why you got married, it puts things into perspective. Right? Because you have to want to make something work. Because I can find 100 reasons to divorce or whatever, or to marry, right? If you're, like, for example, if you're really in love with somebody, you'll excuse all the dumb things and all the silly things you don't like. Even the things that are deal breakers for you, you're going to overlook them.
Compromise.
And then if you fall out of love with somebody, you're going to find every little thing about how they look at you, how they speak. Just
reason to leave. You'll find any reason to leave.
Absolutely. So you want to, I think that's where premarital counseling comes in, where you kind of center in on that and say, this is why we got married. This is what it is. Our goal is this. We're trying to get to Jannah, and obviously we want to remain halal, and I want to have peace in my home. I want to have sakina. Our children are an obligation on us, meaning we have fara'id towards them, right? Like they have their rights, right? So if you can maybe recenter the conversation, and I know it's easier said than done because emotions are involved, right? Emotions take people in a different direction, but I think that's where mediation comes in, where you can kind of realign.
Yes, sir.
I think I want to harp on the whole purpose for what me and Sheikh Nadeem are doing is we want to bridge that gap between the Sharia and state law. And to find that medium, because what's been going on, especially with shuyukh, and this goes, and I'll talk about the Muslim lawyers here in a minute, and I don't mean to loop everybody in together, is that the shuyukh, people coming to the shuyukh saying, I want an Islamic divorce, this, that, and other. And yeah, they're generating these documents for them, but they have zero weight in front of the court. The judge is going to look in that and he's like going, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, what is this? This is foreign law. Rejected. Because we have laws in the land in certain states where on foreign law will not be recognized. Of course, these are what we call the anti-Sharia bills. So this is also a problem. It's that these Islamic divorces that these shuyukh are putting out absolutely have zero weight in the court. They may be divorced Islamically, but they're not divorced legally. And if you want what is in that Islamic divorce to stick in the legal sense, it's not going to happen, because the judge is going to look at it, throw it away, and go, we're going to go by Illinois law, we're going to go by Georgia law, we're going to go by Texas law, and then that's half boys and girls.
So is this where arbitration?
That's the whole purpose of media. We haven't arbitrated a case yet. We got close, but they decided to back out at the last minute. So the deal, what we're trying to do is we want to get everything in writing before. That way, when they go to the judge, Your Honor, we've already agreed to everything. Here's the divorce decree, and the judge will look at it and go, "This looks great. Sign it. You're good." And we take out all that legal the Islamic jargon out of it, and we make it legal jargon. That's what Naveed has done with his premarital. He took out all the Islamic nomenclature and he made it very legal. Actually, I've read. He did a good job, mashallah. Me and Sheikh Nadeem both read through it several times. It's like, this is a really good document.
So my understanding is that if you have an arbitrary court or an arbitrator that's recognized by the court, right, you can kind of mediate those issues outside of court. But I think still the problem for many people though is that the issue of children is a whole separate issue.
Right. Here's the deal, because mediation and arbitration are two different animals. Mediation is where we facilitate for the couple to come to an agreement, and then they can use that agreement to put in their divorce decree for the divorce that the judge will sign, with or without lawyers, because you don't need a lawyer to get divorced. You can do it by yourself, pro se, right? Yeah. Arbitration's a different beast. Now, arbitration is almost like going to court, except me and Nadeem would be the judges. So you come and you can present your evidence. You can either give us all the documents you out there, and we will come up with the ruling. And this is hard to overturn than it is to go through a mediation. Now, mediation is not so easily, the agreement's not easily overturned because you have a contract, right? And so you have, if someone doesn't say, I don't want it, I don't agree to this anymore, then you have a breach of contract, right? Or the judge will tell you, look, I don't have time for this. Go back to the mediator and hash that issue out, and then come back to me.
Oh.
Right, the court will do that. And I know they do that. I don't know about here. In
I think they
Illinois.
do it here too, where they want you to have some mediation before they come in.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
the
Right,
courts
yeah.
are way too bogged down. Their
Yeah.
dockets are way too full, especially now that we're in the pro.
And there's so many nuances that they can't just get through in a court session.
Well, the judges are swamped.
Yeah.
And especially now that we're in the post-COVID era, they're now finally getting to cases back in 2020 that were
Wow.
put, this is across the country. The courts are jammed packed. And so they're leaning more on ADR, alternative dispute resolution, to handle these situations, whether it's through mediation or through arbitration. Now, mediation, as I said, that's where both the party, we don't make a decision. We help y'all cut through the meat or through the fluff to come to the root issue, and let's resolve it on there if y'all are both agreed, and then we'll put it in writing, and you can have your attorneys or whomever put it, or you can put it in the decree and have the judge sign off on it. And they'll be, that's what the judge wants. They want to say that y'all were able to agree on something. Please don't come to trial on this because you're not going to like what the judge is going to have to say. So they prefer couples to work it out and then get the divorce instead of having to go all the way through the pains of trial, which is discovery. You have to meet deadlines. You have to have this drafted, that drafted, and then it could take 2 years to get divorced.
And to be honest, that means you're opening up your whole life to everybody that's there. So
Exactly, Mort.
Yeah.
So with arbitration, it's a different beast. Now, we try to the way our process, me and Nadim have worked out the process for arbitration. We have yet to enact it yet because no one's come to us for arbitration yet. It's mostly been mediations. Is that we try to streamline it and make it as a short time frame as possible. But we need to have y'all to come to full disclosure of everything that y'all have, so we can, including assets, both sides, assets, everything, money, everything, what y'all want to divide. Because of course we're going to do it Islamically as best as we can, and then we'll rule on the matter. We'll write the award, our decision, and then you can present that you can have that incorporated, and you can tell the court we've arbitrated and this is a decision, and courts love that too. They'll sign off on it, but it's harder to overturn an arbitration award. You have to show the standards for overturning an arbitration award are you didn't know the full context of what was in it, you were coerced, misrepresentation, the whole 9 yards. But if y'all can show that y'all were completely agreed, and that's why we have everything in writing, we have everybody sign everything and make sure they understand it, is that you were not coerced in this, you understood this completely, and you agree to the terms in this contract or to this ruling, and you sign off on it, the court will not overrule it, even if it's completely Islamic.
So can you do...
We try to keep it as close as possible, of course.
Can you do arbitration for matters that are not marriage related?
Yes.
So like if me and Sim want to arbitrate against Amir and tell him to be here on time for the shows and stuff like that.
Oh, that he's breaching his contract. Do y'all have a contract?
No, we want to get a contract.
I wouldn't sign it either.
We can't afford contracts. We're surviving by on
thread.
strings.
Yeah. But we want to get a contract to make sure enforce that Amir shows up on time.
Does
Sheikh
Amr have a problem being late?
I was here before him majority of the time.
Actually,
Yeah.
You live closer.
I
All I can
have
say
to
is-
give him props. He's been on time for past few shows.
Hey, I'm not gonna let
Past
you
few
go.
shows,
No.
past few years.
Whoa.
See, this is why arbitration is needed. You see?
I say this.
No, we did. We
Should
just
I
set
need
up
to
an
be involved?
arbitration case for you.
Seems like mediation, actually.
Yeah,
When it's come to the
but the
table.
thing is, though, on a serious note, because there are a lot of Muslims now engaging in entrepreneurships and investments.
we
and
like to get into that field too.
Yeah.
We want to help with whether it's nonprofit organizational disputes, whether it's boards, masjid boards disputing over issues. That's all the time I know.
Yeah,
And we want that's a need. We need mediators and arbitrators in that area. We want to get into help, contract disputes, especially with Muslims and entrepreneurship contracts that they get into. We do want to expand in that area as well. And I'm going to be honest with you. The more attorneys I talk to and the more shayuk that I talk to, we are the only one in business that does what we do.
That's beautiful.
No one else is doing it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of this idea before.
No one else. And I've checked. I mean, people from Atlanta are coming to us. I'm having people from Chicago come to us. I'm going to make the announcement right now. We're opening in Chicago.
Inshallah.
So
Soon?
now,
wow.
right now, come on,
mashallah.
call us up. Go to our website.
Mashallah.
Not kidding.
Repeat your website name again.
My website is TLRADR.org.
TLR ADR.
Yeah, TLRADR.org. You can pull that up and schedule an appointment.
Talk, listen, resolve.
Alternative dispute
Typically,
resolution.
how much are you saving by going through you instead of the actual trial and
Thousands of dollars.
Is it?
We're saving. I know. I can tell you, and me and Nadim will both vouch for this. He's on Umar right now. May Allah reward it. Make it beneficial for him. He said that we are seeing cases where people have spent $100,000 in attorney's fees alone, and they still have not gone to trial.
And that's not including the money that's going to be split after
Exactly.
they get the verdict or judgment.
And I was talking to Sheikh Hamza Mokbul earlier, and he was telling me about a situation where it was told to him, it was consoled to someone who was going through a divorce, and it was hotly contested on child custody. So it was a child custody case, and his attorney or friend told him straight up, not Hamza, not you, Sheikh, told him, this friend or whatever, that look, you have two things. You can either keep your home or fight for your kids.
Oh, wow.
Because these people are selling everything they have in order to, hundreds of thousands of dollars, Sheikh.
That's insane.
We save people a lot of money. And the people are like, well, that's a little expensive. Well, we're saving you a lot in the long run. I'm telling you that right now. Because what you're going to pay in attorney's fees, and you're going to stretch it out. Because here's one I don't want to slam all attorneys. My fellow attorney, my attorneys out there, I love you for the sake of Allah with those who are out there. I know you're trying to help those who are doing for the benefit of the community, trying to help. But attorneys will purposely delay certain things in order to rack up fees.
Yeah. It's part of the
I know
business.
that's not exactly. I'm not saying every attorney does that. I'm not saying that every attorney does that, but there are attorneys out there that do that.
During my divorce, my family was like, "Why are you going to this? I'm like, first you have to understand who you're dealing with, and you have to realize how far you're going to get with this."
Yep.
And for me, I decided to give up everything. I lost everything.
Allahu Akbar. SubhanAllah.
It started from scratch.
Allahu Akbar.
So,
wow.
I'll tell you right now, especially with my ex-wife, she tried her best to make sure she was going to try and put me living in my car. I fought her out because she wanted to raise child support on me. She failed both times. Yeah. Allahu Akbar. Wow. She may have gotten a little increase, but I remember, let me tell you one story. So it was right when I had started back to school. I was in my undergrad at SMU. And she took me to court to try and get an increase on child support, and I just started school. So you're not making as much money. And she was going off of what I had made before I had left that job and was now making less than what I was. And I hired an attorney, and he seriously did it for pennies. Really, he was a really good attorney, and he fought for me. And so I remember going in front of the hearing to the judge, and she had the attorney for the attorney general, representing her, really representing the kids, and then my attorney representing me. And he said, and we explained the situation that, my client's going in undergrad, he's going to graduate, he's going to go to law school, he's, inshallah, he'll be able to pay more. And of course, the attorney general's arguing like, well, Your Honor, you know how long it takes to get through law school and all that kind of stuff. You know what we've all here. And he's like going, well, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to increase the child support just a little. I'm going to increase it to this much, which was not what my ex-wife wanted. And then, of course, we'll revisit. And then my ex-wife started crying. The judge looked straight at her and goes, Miss Anthony, are you done? Because which means he's seen it all. She was putting on the crocodile tears. She was not sincere in that. She was trying to get sympathy from the court. Yeah. That I'm just a single mother with 2 little kids and I need help. He needs to pay me what I owe. And it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahi, it was from Allah that He saved me from financial destruction. 100%. Wow. Alhamdulillah,
So you just giving back, brother.
Yeah, but when those waterworks go in the court, bro.
The judges have seen more than that because they like going, I've seen worse than you. What are you doing here? Don't waste my time.
Yeah. No, you hear a lot of this. You hear a lot of it. A lot of it's theoretical. But like when somebody close to you goes through it, and then it was in that moment where like Sim just kind of got through it, and then the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case went on. Bro, I watched it like a hawk. I'm working and watching it at the same time. I watched every single one, majority of them live. Yeah. And then like you see it because someone else close to you is going through it at such a visceral level, and then you see it all being played out. But then Allah embarrassing this person. Yeah. Right. Like in the sense that like I'm not saying that.
You learn so much truth through these experiences. People like. I wouldn't ever wish what I went through on anyone else, but I really wish they could come away with some of the wisdoms that you come away with when you go through something, when you're walking through hell, and it really made me a better person. And I think in that sense, I'm like, wow, all that worldly possessions that I lost and stuff, none of it matters because now you're just so much better than who you were. Because
character building.
Because I've talked about this on previous shows. I said, you know what? I could think about the faults of my ex-wife, or I could say, hey, this is who I am. And this is, I could be self-reflective, and I can figure out, well, what did I do wrong, and how can I be better, and how can I make my future relationships better. Ultimately, there's two trajectories. You could be that scorned, divorced guy who's always, complaining, pissed off, hating women on social media and stuff. Or you could take this other route where you just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to become a better man. And I'm going to be the best possible man for whoever accepts me as their next husband.
There's a saying, right? Your success is the sweetest revenge. Right? Like
my mother told me that all the time. It's like when, she hates your guts. I was like, when she's like, what you're doing right now, she's probably just grinding her teeth. Because I got remarried. I went back to school. No, that's alhamdulillah, now I'm here with you guys. Allah's opening. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really. I don't deserve any of it. I don't know what Allah has for me, and I don't want to be ungrateful. The deal is, I just don't want to be ungrateful.
Of course, my man.
But so I kind of like, I'm not an arbitrator or mediator, but I kind of been in a position where, like, there was a brother that was getting divorced, and I knew them both, and so I wanted to just kind of maybe see if I could help out. And so I was talking to the sister and trying to arbitrate on behalf, and I was telling the brother too. I'm like, hey, listen, we're just gonna agree just so you can save the marriage, right? Because there's a lot of stuff invested here, and so I'm just agreeing. I'm saying, he might have done some bad things, blah blah blah. I'm just agreeing. I'm not really getting in the argument process of saying like, oh, he didn't do that. What are you talking about, right? Just saying, oh yeah, you know what?
Big difference,
like whatever. But then I realized, like, for a certain person, that they didn't want to arbitrate. And it was almost like that, because it came to a point where they're like, no, you knew all this was happening and you didn't say anything. I don't know if I can trust you. Like this idea of like that somehow now that we're all collectively responsible for her oppression. Right, and it was like almost to the point where it was accusations that she was making and claiming that I knew this was happening, and I would come over right after this happened, and I would ignore all of it. Right, and at that point, I realized that I said, "Hey, listen, whatever person, this is my last message. I'm like, whatever person is messaging this to you, and putting these things in your ears, is not going to be there when you go through with this." You're going to end up going through all these hoops and hurdles and hoo-ha on your soapbox, and then everything is said and done, they're going to be all long and gone. Because what I'm trying to do is trying to,
keep it.
Your children, your life, your future, right? I'm not worried about that. But then, and I guess what I learned in that moment is that there are people and there are forces that are either, number one, people who generally don't want to arbitrate and they just want to, they have their mind made. And then at the other hand, there are people out there that are claiming to offer services of, self-help or therapy, and they're the ones behind putting the thoughts in people's heads. Yeah. So their job is, and it's an amana that they should have. And by the way, they claim to be, they're saying they're Muslims and they want to help the community, but they're actually furthering divorces and by putting ideas in people's heads.
Yes.
And I've come to that. The mental health game has become exactly that, right? It's become this place where people go and they get affirmation for their emotions. They get told, well, yeah, this is why you're feeling this way, and you're valid in your justifications. They're not. And I think this is one of the problems. I'm not saying all therapists are out there are like this, but there's this culture in therapy where there's an affirmation of your incorrect decision-making process tree, whatever you want to call it. This way of evaluating reality,
your truth,
and telling them to make sense of their reality instead of correcting their decision-making process and helping them through how to become an effective thinker, how to become logical, reasonable, rational. They're just saying, You're right. You're right.
They plant the seed. They plant the seed and they just let it fester.
So this is coming out of the idea of everybody having their own truth, right? Like, this is your truth.
That postmodernism,
Yeah. And the idea is that, like, if you tell someone, like, for example, like, let's say someone does a crime, right? And you say, well, if they tell you, listen, I didn't have enough money, my father wasn't around, I don't know, I was feeling bad that day, whatever, right? And you say, hey, you were right. It's okay that you feel that way. And you know what? I understand why you do that. And people should also understand why you made that decision. and it's easy for them to judge you, but I totally see your truth. I mean, if I was in your position, I might have done the same thing too, right? These kind of affirmation things, right? Instead of saying, hey, listen, separate your feelings from accountability, meaning what you do, how you act on them, right? And Islam, that's a big thing to us, right? We can feel all kinds of ways, right? I can have all kinds of desires, right? But how I act is the way I'm going to be judged, right? And the key word, there is a judgment. And it's not our judgment. It's not what we think is right and wrong.
It's Allah's judgment.
Right. And if you try to convince somebody that don't worry about Allah's judgment, just worry about the truth that makes you feel good so you can cope. I understand the position. I'm not trying to say they're evil people. They're trying to make people kind of, accept and move on and build, right? Yeah. But there's a way to do that, right? You can never move on in a healthy way, holistic way, by denying certain truths. Yeah. By being delusional.
You know what's some really interesting thing? So I was talking to Ozi, yesterday, and Umar Zaman. We had a great conversation, bro. And there are some other brothers there too. But one thing that your brother had brought up, Irfan had brought up, shout out to Revival Live, I think it's called, right?
They're setting up a new show, Revival Live.
Yeah. He mentioned something that was so interesting. Somebody that drops like a little thing but has like tons of meaning, right? He was like, dude, people don't like talking about Jahannam anymore. He's like, when's the last time you heard a khatib actually talk about Jahannam?
Yeah.
Right? And I started like backtracking, and we were like thinking we were thinking out loudly, and we started having a great conversation about how this whole feel-good tradition has been going on for like the past 7 to 10 years. Everything has to make you feel good. And I get the dilemma. People, they see that this trajectory of where the whole world is going, and Muslims, everyone's having all these chaotic life experiences, and social fabric is breaking, and people are traumatized, and you just want to make Islam be very positive. And it becomes so much that people are just very afraid to talk about Jahannam now. And it becomes a very uncomfortable thing to give a khutbah and have a segment about Jahannam and look, I get the challenge, and that's there. But what ends up happening, what we're dealing with now, is a generation of people that don't want to have anything to do with even talking about Jahannam, and even the verses of the Quran that happen to do with Jahannam. We're building that now. With the build process is like, we're already like 80% up the hill. We're not fully there yet, though. But it's almost like if you start talking about Jahannam, it's like, okay, we just disassociate with this type of content. Let's talk about something else, right? And I get there's some parents, they don't want to talk about Jahannam with their children when they're little kids and all that kind of stuff. There's obviously a remedy to that, too, is where you talk so much about Jannah and once in a while talk about Jahannam to the point where you're able to gauge your children and they're just yearning for Jannah, but anytime Jahannam is mentioned, like, dude, I don't want to have anything to do with that place type thing. That part I get when children are little and all that stuff, right? But then the whole feel-good thing also is that, you have to be very careful, and you have to limit your speech to what type of trigger type speech you have. And it gets to the point where, and I think Sheikh Hamza had mentioned this because Ozi told me, and I completely agree with this, is like, or I understand where it's coming from, where the whole anti-bullying thing was promoted so strong in our recent 5 to 7 years maybe, that it was actually geared towards helping the LGBT community come out properly so they wouldn't be bullied strong enough, right? And I was like, is that a coincidence? Like, I'm thinking, did it happen to work simultaneously, or did it help feed the narrative? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it very much did help feed the narrative. And you see that a majority of the proponents, look, bullying is wrong. Everybody knows that. But the extreme, this is the point that I'm trying to mention, this whole long-winded thing that I said. The extreme attention that's given to mental health. Mental health is definitely there. You have to give it. But the extreme level of everything being attributed to mental health, the extreme thing where everything attributed to somebody's anxiety, the extreme because somebody's depression, the extreme bullying, it all comes into this whole thing of not allowing people to feel uncomfortable anymore. And any type of discomfort that's felt to anybody, just don't talk about it. It's not, but that is a very un-Islamic way of thinking, bro. And Ozi said something beautiful. He said Muhammad was always under anxiety, right? Of course he's a prophet. His threshold is different, right? But to make to constantly build a world where there's discomfort for everybody is not good for anybody's dunya and their akhirah, bro. And that's what we're seeing right now. Don't make them feel uncomfortable. Let them say that they are what they are, right? If you do that, you make them feel, it all comes down to comfort and discomfort, right?
Yeah.
You can't let them feel uncomfortable. And this comes back to what your brother said about Jahannam, right? It's like, I started thinking about myself, because when I was teaching, it's like you had all types of people there who were like on, medications. They had to go to the nurse because that's true. But the test now begins is that how much are you going to limit talking about Jahannam? Because I found myself doing that. Like, you got to talk about, you don't know how many people are in this class that are like that. And then you later on get a document of how many people are like special needs in that regard and they're on medication, anxiety medication. You can't talk about these. You can't talk about that. I forgot what it's called. But you end up having to limit what you talk about. And then later on, 10 years later, you're like, dude, I barely ever talked about Jahannam because of those reasons.
You know what
Right?
I think the great thing is, though? Is that the best hadith, the best saying is in the Quran, right? Allah is the best to convey any message.
Yes.
And look how direct, right? وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ
Yeah.
وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ.
Yeah.
So, it basically means, can you translate for them?
Yeah, no, so before I translate, I will. But the verse that precedes it is, right? وَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. Whoever's balances are heavy, and here Allah is referring to the good side is heavy, he has a blissful living, right? And the person who's light on the scales, right? So that person is in utmost destruction, and that destruction is not in hamia, a very hot burning fire. Now, I don't want people to get the wrong message of saying everyone to start talking about Jahannam. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying look back to everything that we mentioned as far as the trends, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this depiction of Jahannam for a certain reason. Is because if all else fails, even if you want to look at it about the most lightest way, yes, talk about Jannah, that's very important. But if all else fails, and all the systems that you have in place for being an upright Muslim, then you have to bring Jahannam back into the picture to bring that person back, right? But the fact that we don't see on the minbar anymore people even mentioning Jahannam because they don't want people to feel uncomfortable is a big problem. I'm not saying all of our khutbah, again, I'm saying this again because it could be misunderstood. Don't focus on Jahannam all the time. I get it. But the fact that it's taken out completely out of our iman vernacular is a big problem.
It's part of the science, Sheikh.
It is. That's what it led to, is that even the concept of Dajjal would be taken away. Yeah. When we were little, we used to hear about Dajjal every week, bro. Laylatul Qadr would be Dajjal and jinns, bro. Now, nobody wants to talk about Dajjal.
But you know, the crazy thing is that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would spend sometimes a whole day between Dhuhr and Asr to Maghrib to Isha, speaking about Masih ad-Dajjal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
There was so long that Sahaba forgot some of to all the events he was narrating.
Yeah.
But that's how much he would be afraid and remind and tell people, be aware of this, be mindful of this, because these are times you're going to be in.
But that's what we were talking about recently, even about the Dajjalic paving of the way, because when he stopped being talked about, that's when it's prime for him to arrive.
When you stop worrying about your enemy, is the perfect time for him to make his move.
That's when the attack is ready.
There's a story about this, right? Yeah. Remember, similar in the history where it was talking about where when the Christians were thinking about retaking Spain, they would send spies. And when he would go in there and he would see the children that were studying Islam and the other sciences, and he would go back and say, what did you find? He said, now is not the time to attack, right? And then he would go on for a period of a few years, and then finally it happens where he goes back to the Christian army or ruler, and he says, what did you find now? He says, now is the time to attack. And he says, why did you say now? He says, whenever I'd go back, I'd find them studying the religion and other sciences and talking about it in the streets openly. When I went back this time, I saw them not talking about that, and they were talking about how they had fallen in love and their hearts are broken, and they're no longer. So basically, they were no longer, singing poetries about knowledge. They were singing poetries about the haram they were doing and how they missed it. And the idea was that he says, now this is the time to attack because we've taken them away. They're weak. Right, they're weak in that moment. And this is kind of what it is. And the shaitan is going to attack you from every which way. Make no mistake, the Dajjal is carrying out the shaitan's desire, right? Yeah. And so, إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ, right? He is a plain and clear enemy to you. And this is the worst part about it all. What is the devil going to say in Yawm al-Qiyamah?
Yeah.
I didn't tell you to do anything. You did it on yourself. I fear Allah.
أنا أخاف الله. He's going to say, I fear Allah. وأنا بريء منكم. I am free from you. I know Allah is Lord.
Yep.
I'm free from you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So imagine that. The guy that's calling you, it's like a guy calling you saying, hey, this is the best house, the best thing to do. Right when you get there, like, hey, man, I don't know any of you guys. The biggest troll in the world.
To be honest with you, that's very telling. When Shaitan runs away after you said, Shaitan made me do it, you're left there by yourself.
Yeah.
No one else is there. You're by yourself in front of Allah. No one is there.
Yeah, man.
It's between you and Allah. That's it.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Like, imagine like saying, you know what? It's like, this is like, I mean, we call it like, it's almost like khayana, right?
It's the biggest khayana.
Where like you're like treachery, right? Where like, let's say I say, hey, you know what? Come here to the studio, man. We're gonna have a great podcast. We're gonna do all this stuff, and instead of that, we just leave you here and get jumped by a bunch of guys and take your money, right? Yeah. I mean, that would be this. What essentially even worse because the devil is leaving you for that. I mean, for Jahannam, right?
Yeah,
and he's a plain and clear enemy, and everything that the Prophet would. I mean, he is a guide and a warner, right? He would say that I in the Quran mentions that. Bashirun wa Nazir. He's a glad tiding and also a warning to those. Warning to who? The people that are heedless. You know, and one thing, you know, Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, the scholar, there's an ayah in the Quran, I was just looking it up, right? أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Where Allah is telling them that now that, you know, has the time not come for those whose hearts, you know, have heard and their hearts have submitted to then like act on it, right? To believe and to carry out and submit to yourselves to it. But don't be like those who had that feeling, who recognized it and they felt it, but they pushed it away because then eventually Allah made it further for them and it turned their hearts like where they no longer feel anything now. Yeah. And He closed their hearts off.
Hardened their hearts.
So when you stop talking about things like Jahannam, right? You know, there's a saying in Arabic, right? Ba'id min ayn, ba'id min qalb. If you stop, you know, if you stop seeing it or hearing about whatever it may be, it's going to be far from your heart and far from you. So if you stop talking about it, you're not reminded. It loses it, and then Allah closes your heart to it. And you're not worried. But then you become like the Christians. Just believe Jesus. He died for me.
Yeah. No, remember we were growing up, and sometimes we hear the khutbah of Jahannam, bro. You'd be good for like 2 weeks. Bro.
Yeah.
Like, yo,
Remember the books? What was that book that we would have? The section about what happened in the afterlife. Remember there was a huge book. It was a scary book. Remember we read it?
Oh, that one. The black cover. He used to have the black cover with the white red.
What happened after you die or something like this? Remember that? Like a life of the after. It was, It was absolutely like it was terrifying, and you don't find these books anywhere now, right? Like people, we would be forced to read about these things. Like, what are the questions you're going to be asked in the grave? What are the punishments of the grave? Yeah. You ask an average person now, they won't tell you what the punishment of the what's the punishment for not praying in the grave.
Yeah, man. No, it's considered to be like, hey, don't talk about that stuff, man. It's going to make them hate the religion. You know, and it's all guys in this whole. I'm not bashing mental health people, but mental health is always used many times, even to run away from deen, bro.
But this is not mental health an issue. This is an issue of us.
It causes no.
No, but I'm saying that this is an issue. Even people who are not in mental health, even the shuyukh. This is an issue of people trying to make more Islam more palatable, which they feel is a better version of Islam to give to somebody.
They're all involved in the feel good. That's
the argument they use, at least from many of the people who are involved with Dawah. They say that, you know, Prophet ﷺ didn't talk about hellfire right away. He first invited people to goodness and khair, and that's why even most of the ayahs related to hellfire are towards the end, towards the smallest surahs in Juzama. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, no, number one, they're all Makki. A lot of those are Makki surahs that talk about Jahannam, right? A lot of the themes of Aqidah thematically occurred in Mecca. Even when Rasulullah first got his message remember when he's on the hill with Abu Lahab, right? What does he say? What would you say
if there's an army behind me? Yeah.
He said, then I'm warning you of a great torment. He starts off Islam with that. Yeah. Because he knew what type of people they were. Wow. And he knew Jahiliyyah, the only way to shake them is you couple with two things. Number one, being honest, because if he says it, it's going to happen. Honesty is super important. And if you're an honest person and you don't betray anybody's trust, then when you talk about torment and what Allah has in store for you, like, dude, this guy, I don't care if I agree with him or not. I know he never lies, and I know he's never deceiving us. He's telling the truth, bro. And that has a greater effect. Dude, that's what he started off with. Yeah. Right? And a lot of the Makki surah, yes, on a very individual level, Muhammad ﷺ was talking with somebody. It was a different style he had when he was addressing people in public. When he had to get everybody together, because collectively, when you talk about something like a torment, everybody feeds off of each other.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between making the individual da'wah, speaking to somebody on their level, and giving, because when you're addressing a person on the individual level, right, you're able to cater that message with what they need to hear. Yeah. Right, meaning that from obviously within the boundaries of Islam, right? But when you're addressing a crowd, you don't have time to care to every single person's need. Yeah. You're going to give them a warning and say, hey, listen, if you don't fix your way, there's an impending doom and harm upon you.
Yes, and that's exactly what that was. Yeah. About the hill, right? When you first started. Look, another thing is that we're very, very afraid to talk about a few certain things, either because of the political climate that we lived in, or the people that don't have the same understanding we did. But this is the fitna here. People didn't grow up the way we did. The new generation of Muslims, you know, Allah protect all of us, our generation, their generation. Now, we waited a little too long to talk about certain things because of political climate and being stigmatized and all that kind of stuff, right? Try to explain in a minute or two to somebody who's 15 to 17 years old the concept of jihad in Islam. Try to explain to them what happened in Bani Qurayza when Muhammad ﷺ, he saw the people that actually killed the Huffaz, and he asked Sa'd ibn Mu'adh to judge between them, right? And he said, Ya Rasulullah, execute all of them. And Rasulullah said, you know what you decided, that was Allah's decision too, right? And even like the prisoner, like I'm not trying to go towards these things, but I'm saying we haven't gone towards these things so long that these things have become so alien. I've talked to Muslims that got into that, like, dude, this can't be from Islam, bro. Yeah. And this is what we're seeing now. Yeah. That anything that made them feel uncomfortable, whether it happens to LGBTQ, bro, Islam now, what was originally taught, shuyukh are unfortunately in the situation, du'at are in a situation where they can't talk about Islam like it has to be talked about. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it becomes so uncomfortable now that that path has been beaten for so long, they can't go back now. Yeah. They don't have that freedom to go back and talk about jihad and talk about, like me and your brother was talking about this over coffee, of Khalid bin Walid, what he had to do with, you know, executing 200,000 Romans, right? And he said we have to fill the river with blood and we have to, like, people don't want to hear these stories. No. Right? And people don't want to hear the story of Muhammad ﷺ saying that you want to identify which ones are Muslim, pull their pants down and see if they're circumcised or not. Yeah. Right? Like, people don't want to hear these stories, but this actually happened.
Or like, what about the statement of the Prophet? Ana Nabi al-Rahma wa ana Nabi al-Malhama.
Yeah, no, of course.
Like things like this. Okay, I think here's the point.
Can you translate that?
Yeah, I am the Prophet of mercy, and I'm the Prophet of war, like essentially. But what I wanted to say is this. Here's the thing, right? Is that we're not saying don't be compassionate. There is to be Muhammad is sallallahu alaihi wasallam rahmatul lil alamin, not just for human beings, right? For everything, the entire universe. Yeah. He's rahmatul lil alamin. Yeah, of mercy.
But he's a realist too.
Yeah,
and he lives in this world.
But mercy comes with what? It has to also include like the warning and the true love, which is not the love of accepting everything.
Of course.
Right? If your parents love you, they don't just let you do everything because they love you. They actually stop you from doing certain things because of their love for you, because of their rahmah for you, because that rahmah they have from you comes from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that same rahmah is rahmatul alameen in Him. Right? So that rahmah prevents you from doing something and stops you and advises you and gives you nasiha, advices on what to do. Yep. And it teaches you how to interact with one another. Yeah. Right? And that interaction is super important. Why? Because the Quran also says that let there be a group amongst you that arises from among you that enjoins the good and forbids the evil.
Yeah. No, I agree. And look, listen, based on that, just and this is probably the last thing I'll say. I talked a lot today, but the Battle of Tabuk, I asked the listeners, please go through the hadith of Ka'b ibn Malik, hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, of what happened when the expedition of Tabuk happened and some of the Sahaba just didn't go because they were tired. right? And they could have went, but they didn't go. And what Rasulullah and how he treated them and what verses were revealed. I'm not going to say much because I want people to actually do this, and maybe we can, on the next episode, we talk what happened to Ka'b ibn Malik. Because Rasulullah said we have to go to Tabuk, and he said, I'll say the beginning portion of the hadith. He said, I was living in a time where the leaves were lush and blossoming, and it was nice weather. I was very comfortable. And Rasulullah asked us to get ready for Tabuk, the expedition, right? And he said that Rasulullah got everybody ready. I said, you know what? Anas bin Malik is narrating his hadith. He said, you know what? I can get ready in time, right? And he said, but then when I started finding out that Rasulullah was already ready to go, then I said to myself, you know what? I'm one person. I can get ready fast. I'll catch up with them. Right? And then Rasulullah ended up leaving, and he ended up staying. And there's a few other. Allah refers, in Surah Tawbah. One of the reasons why the surah is called Surah Tawbah is because of this story. Right? So, Ka'b, radiallahu, he knew what was happening. And he said, the only people that stayed back were the munafiqun, the old people, and the women and the children. I was amongst them. Right? So when Rasulullah, the other half is when Rasulullah comes back, yes, he's Nabi al-Rahmah, but what you're talking about is sometimes you have to have Rahmah, you got to show tough love, and you got to be tough. And Rasulullah says, the reason why Rasulullah, what if he was merciful all the time? You think he could be just?
No.
Yeah.
Meaning what we identify as mercy now. You think if you just let everything go, that's not mercy.
Yeah.
How is that mercy? Then where does justice come?
then-
Why did Allah create Jahannam?
Yeah, mercy has to be balanced by justice.
It has to be balanced by justice. And you have to tell people that, hey, if this is not met, this is where you're going to end up being. Right? And that's what Allah is much more merciful than Rasulullah.
Of course.
We call that enablement.
Exactly.
If you want to use these words, it's enabling people to have
Yeah.
bad
Bad behavior.
character and bad behavior.
That's why Rasulullah is a realist. That he's realist on the highest level of mercy, rahmatan lil alameen, because he carried out justice too, and he had to. Of this world that we live in, the way Allah created this world, you have to have that balance. And Rasulullah was the best in that. That when he had to be stern, he was stern. When he had mercy, of course he had mercy. Look what he said about his daughter. Like those people who have a hard time understanding how you should treat your daughters. He said, like about Fatima radiallahu anha. He said, if I ever reached out my hand to hit her, may Allah never return my hand back to me. Right? That's how he was with his family. But he was also the first one to say that if my daughter stole, I would cut her hands off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that balance. Right? That's Rasulullah.
I mean, that just goes to show there has to be consequences.
But he's saying
to
that
your
I would
actions.
never strike her.
No, right.
Like unjustly, and if I did, may Allah never return my hand back. But he uses daughter as an example. If my daughter stole, I would have to cut her hands off. He's saying I would personally do it. Right?
This is because of the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Of course.
Right?
Yes,
All
sir.
of the entire premise of good and bad, just and unjust goes back to what Allah revealed.
Of course, sir. You're right.
And that's the key point here.
That's it.
The whole culmination of all of this is that feelings are important, but they don't decide what's right and wrong. And if you truly want to be in submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then at times you have to put aside those emotions, because Allah says that sometimes what is something that you may like is not good for you, and something that you may not like is something you may like is bad for you. So that means that you're in submission, and you're saying, recognizing that my emotions do not dictate to me what is right and wrong, right? I'm not going to take my hawa as my ilah, as my deity. It's going to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I have to come and control that for a moment and say, listen, that I am submitting to something and someone and a being, Allah, who knows better than I do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's exactly
Yes, sir.
it. Larry, why don't you talk about anything,
Can you call
closing
him
thoughts? Sorry, Yunus.
It's okay. I'm used to
I've
it.
called him Larry
Yeah.
since...
Good old Larry.
I know Larry
my
for the
gosh.
longest time. You guys have to call him Yunus. Me and him, we
Call
have
you
a...
a different
That's right.
vibe.
We have a
Me
vibe.
and Vincent have a vibe.
He's got an in now.
We've been
got-
friends
he's
for
got
a
a
long
connection.
He's
time.
got hooks into you now.
We've had a relationship for much longer than you
Mashallah.
both.
Must be nice, bro.
But we're gonna have from now on. It's gonna be y'all three y'all going forward, inshallah.
But he wanted to meet me the most, though.
I did want to meet more. I did want to meet more.
The more experience.
I'm just kidding.
But anyways, go ahead, sir.
What would y'all
What-
like to?
what-
What else would y'all like to know?
Is there anything that we've left from this discussion that you would like?
No, I've actually.
Like, I can't believe I came all the way out here and these guys didn't ask me this important
no,
question
no.
related to what I'm doing. Man,
They didn't value me. They didn't validate me.
forget these dudes.
I'm just so glad that I was able to come out here. I've enjoyed this every single moment of it.
Yeah, we tried to give you your money's worth, but we're way beyond our normal hour and a half long podcast. This is almost 2.5 hours now.
Mashallah.
This is one of the longer ones.
2 hours?
Yeah,
Really?
2.5 hours.
Yeah,
May Allah put barakah in it.
Mashallah, that went by fast.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm open for any questions that y'all guys may have.
Well, let's start with first of all, just how do the people they heard about your services and what you're doing, and then I'm sure people want to reach out. So what's the best way, and how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. You can either go to our website at TLRADR.org, or you can email us at info@TLRADR.org. I know it's a lot of letters, but it's pretty short. So you can email us or you can go and go to our website and contact us through there and email and send a little contact message through there, or you can schedule an appointment. Inshallah, we'll, I don't know what it is about before Ramadan, but we got super busy in the next 2 weeks. Everybody wants to get divorced before Ramadan.
Really?
'Tis the season.
Wow.
And I'm expecting, and me and Nadeem are both expecting that we're probably going to get busy after Ramadan.
Wow.
Because then everybody's going to want to get divorced after Ramadan. It's like going, that was the worst Ramadan ever. I'm done with that son of a gun. He had me slave over that stove for his family and had 6 entrees and everything every night.
So, is your Ramadan going to be in Texas?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it low key. We're gonna, me and my wife and the family pretty chill on Ramadan. We want to concentrate on our ibadah and
Good.
not, My wife's like going, I don't know what you married the wrong woman if you think I'm gonna make 5 entrees a night and have these 5-course meals and stuff like that. We're gonna eat tuna for iftar. So I'm fine with that.
Dates and water, brother.
Tuna
Dates and water. That's all you
all
need.
tuna.
Alhamdulillah,
Yeah,
alhamdulillah.
Dates and water. That's all you need, brother.
Yeah. No, and so any last parting words that you want to share to the audience or people that were listening to you? Or I know we said a lot of things, so maybe anything that you have some final words or final thoughts.
You've had a very interesting life, and I'm sure you've come away with some kind of wisdom you want to impart. Maybe your kids revisit this episode a few years from now and
Or
really.
a decade from now.
I only have one thing to say. Have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Allahu Akbar.
I could have done. It's amazing since I've converted, and I know I've been through hardships even when I was going through my first divorce, and I fell into a sense of depression. I had to hospitalize myself for a couple of weeks, and I really just had to refocus and reconnect, and it was good. I had to go through my lows in order to come up, and inshallah, I know Allah's going to continue to test me. He's going to even test me with this. Is this going to go to my head? So you gotta be careful with where Allah tests you with everything. Just because something is good doesn't mean there's not a there's not a test in that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So Allah has put a lot of barakah on what I've in my life. I can testify to this. If anything, I'm a testament that this deen is the haqq.
Allahu Akbar.
100%. If you don't look at if I could write a book, I would. But my life is a testament that this religion is true.
Allahu Akbar.
100%. And alhamdulillah, I didn't tell you all this, but I wanted to share that about it. My mother-in-law converted to Islam.
Awesome.
She lives. She's with us now. She doesn't live with us, but she's with us now in Texas. She lives in Oak Cliff with her other daughters. But she used to live in Pueblo, Mexico, at Zacapalas. It's a small little town. She was the only Muslim in that little town. She converted. When she used to be extra. She was Jehovah's Witness before she converted, and she was about to get baptized. And my wife will tell you that she's like she had a conversation. And Omi, I love you, by the way. But my wife said to my mother-in-law, was like going, right before she was about to get baptized, Jehovah's Witness, she had been studying with the Jehovah's for quite a while. She's like going, Mama, I need to tell you, I've been telling you this, but you need to listen to me now because I don't want you to go to the fire. My wife was very frank with her.
Subhanallah.
And my wife had her watch the message. You remember the message?
Yeah.
Spanish.
Oh,
in Spanish. And she's like going, and my mother-in-law knows the Bible inside now. She's got parts of it memorized. She's like going, wait a minute. This is mentioned in Isaiah. This is mentioned in here.
Oh, wow.
This is mentioned in there. She's like going, he's the prophet.
Wow.
Subhanallah, man.
Subhanallah.
He's the one they talked about. This is the prophet. So and I have to say this mashallah, this woman is on her deen.
Wow.
She and even though she's
saw
very,
it, bro.
yeah,
she saw it.
She saw
Hidayah
it.
from
It
Allah.
went boof.
So
The light bulb went off.
Just a quick clarification, because some people might not know this, but Isaiah is a book of prophecies.
Yeah, in the book, in the Bible, in the Old Testament.
And there's mentioning of prophets that will come, and some of the Christians will say that's Jesus. But with a prophecy that lays out it'll be a brother to, like, he'll be a brother from among their brethren to Moses. So when you go through these prophecies, you see the comparison between Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Musa alayhi salam, and you see that they're more.
Actually, I'm going to blow your mind. What won her over to knowing that this was the prophet was when she saw the scene of the Battle of Badr.
Yeah.
What?
She's like, the Battle of Badr.
Wow, it's fun.
Because it's in Isaiah.
Is it?
With
The camels,
yes,
the
the
army of
thousands,
camels
the
that
armies,
come.
the armies.
From
come
the
out.
land of Kidda, like in the area
Yes.
where they'll come with the armies of donkeys and camels.
She said that's in Isaiah. That's in Isaiah. That's the Battle of Badr. She's like one. He's the one that was mentioned.
Allahu Akbar.
SubhanAllah, I got
just by
goosebumps,
watching
bro.
the movie.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps right
Just by
now.
the movie, bro.
It was the Battle of
Who
Badr
knew?
that did it for her. It was the Battle of Badr that did it for her.
And that's
Bro,
why the
Mustafa
Quran-
Akkad made this movie. This is Mustafa Akkad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made this movie in the late
Rahmatullah.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like these stories are coming out now about it.
Yeah. mashallah.
You know what?
That's
That shows the
crazy.
barakah that Allah
The
subhanahu wa
barakah,
ta'ala
yeah.
has put in that movie and has blessed that man.
No, I still love that movie. When
Yeah.
Fatih Makkah happens, I always cry.
I wish
bro,
they would. I
in
wish
that
they would
movie.
do. I wish they would remake it again and put it more. You know, with
Yeah.
the technology
Yeah.
we have today.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it would be, especially what they did with the Omar series. I think it would be off the chain, bro.
When you were growing up, did you always, after you watched that movie, like when I was growing up, did you always wish that Hamza became Muslim after he saw Anthony Quinn? Did
Yeah.
you always hope
I
that?
thought that he did. Because I started
Yeah.
watching after I converted.
Yeah,
I saw like,
like
when,
Lion in the
I
Desert
bought that
too?
movie right. I was like,
Yeah.
what, is he Muslim? Did
Like
he
Lion in the
convert?
Desert too. I was like, man, I think this guy's Muslim. And you had like
Allahu
this
Akbar.
wishful
I
thing.
think I had
Yeah,
that
bro.
moment when Denzel played Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, man, he's got to be Muslim. Bro. He looks just like him. He's got to be a Muslim. He's got to convert.
You would think,
Yeah.
you know, but Allah guides whom He wills,
You're
right?
right.
Yeah.
You know,
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and the rest of your family?
my mother embraced Islam 8 years ago, and that took a long time.
Oh, your mother too.
Yeah, my mother too. She's
Mashallah.
been with us now.
Mashallah.
That took her from just watching me and my wife.
Wow.
It was
Oh, wow.
completely, you know, me and my wife tried
Experiential,
to.
yeah.
It was experiential. It wasn't
So that
necessarily the message. It was necessarily she just watched me and my wife
That was
for
the Dawah
15
in
years.
action.
Yeah, it was Dawah in action.
And your
Allahu
kids?
Akbar.
My kid, my daughter. Sorry, Brent. My daughter, even though I tried to raise her as best as I could, I was dealing with a tug of war
Yeah.
between me and my ex-wife, because the lifestyles were completely different. So when they come in to visit me, we had the Islamic, you know, lifestyle, and then when they went back home, it's willing, do as you will kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because my ex-wife is not religious at all. You know, it's completely like everybody else here in this country. You know, it's just, I do what I want as long as it feels good. I don't hurt anybody else. Even if I do hurt somebody else, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah, man. It's rough.
And so but alhamdulillah, now that my son, he lives in Washington State with his family. He's got three
Mashallah.
sons, my 3 grandsons. Assalamu alaikum, Julian. So he's close. He's in conversation with my stepsons, and they're always Snapchatting each other, Instagram each other, and they're always Islam this, Islam that. Check out this lecture, Julian. Check out this lecture,
mashallah.
that. They're on his case. My stepsons are on their case. So, Assalamu alaikum, Omar. Assalamu alaikum, Adam. If I haven't told y'all already, talk to y'all soon. So they are on his. They constantly talking about Islam, and so I talked to him the other day. I was like, "Look, bro, here's the deal. Let's not, let's do it for the sake of your kids. Your kids deserve it. You deserve it. Because he's starting to come to terms, because he's like, he hates what's going on in this country.
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah.
harufa, kuma haruf.
Yeah.
I love that smart.
Yeah. And there's only one. I think people realize there's only one religion, only one group of people that are like the last line of defense against it,
You're
and
right.
it's us.
and that is the Muslims.
And so he's sick to death, especially with the whole transgender thing going on, and kids going through transitions and all this kind of stuff. And kids, parents are getting put in jail or getting sued. May not be in this country, but I know it's happening in Canada and maybe in other European countries.
Well, here's the scary part. In America, people could think that you control your children, but in reality, the state has property of your children.
Yeah.
They're the final say in all
you're
child
right.
matters. If they're
Yep.
under 18,
Yep.
you can lose your children.
That's what we
at
call
any
the
moment to
best
state.
interest of the child.
Yeah.
So he said, so I got on the phone with him and I was talking. I was like, look, bro, I know Omar and Adam, we were talking. I was like, because he's close. He says Allah's this, Allah that, the messenger this, the messenger that. I was like, well, look, just say it. Get it done. You'll be glad. You said that the only thing that you're going to regret is that you will regret that you didn't say it sooner.
Allah.
Yeah.
Just say that. Do you believe that there's one God? He goes, yes, Dad, I do. And I was like, well, do you believe the message? You know that the Prophet Muhammad is the messenger? He goes, yes, I do. I was like, well, what are you doing, bro? He's like, well, he goes, let me wait till I get to California and then I'll do it. Dad. I was like, well, good. Just do it. Take your time. I'm not forcing you because there's no compulsion. You do it when you're ready to do it.
Yeah.
Allah will put it in your heart when you're ready to do it. He's like, wait till I get to California, Dad. I'll do it. I go, good. There's a nice Muslim community in Orange County. You'll be fine. There's a good support system. But he's pretty much ready. He's
Yeah.
just
I
hasn't.
mean,
he's,
I mean-
Usually,
Awesome.
that in that moment when I've seen people like that, there's only one thing that's preventing them. It's the shaitan and the waswasa.
That's
They
it.
say, "Oh, what if I do this? Well, I don't want to be the perfect one before I come in." All these, so you have to remind them that if you mentally and emotionally have accepted Allah and the Messenger, the only thing, literally the only thing stopping you is the whisper of the shaitan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's it. May
Yeah.
Allah guide him and make it
I
through.
mean, and if we can, sorry guys, it's almost Maghrib time soon. I think
Yeah.
Maghrib's coming up.
Maghrib?
Let's do this. Maghrib's in like an hour, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So we're
All
gonna
right,
wrap
but-
up soon, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That is our show. What else? Do we have any other guests coming up? No, we don't. All right. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.